Chapter 2600. On the seventh day of the Nine Clouds meeting, noon had just passed. The True Immortal Ranking Board and Arhat Ranking Board had entered the final stage. On the Pure Lands side, Wunyan had won all his battles. No one could stop him. On the Nine Clouds Immortal Realms side, chess deity Junyu, Crown Prince Qin Su, Lin Lei, Zhuo Wuchen, and the others had won all their battles. Junyu's chess skills, Qin Su's secret skills, Lin Lei's halberd, and Zhuo Wuchen's sword skills had left a deep impression on the cultivators present. If nothing unexpected happened, the supreme immortal of this year would be born among these people. The next battle was between Zither deity Meng Yao and Lin Lei. Meng Yao had entered the Dao through music. If she was facing an ordinary cultivator, it would be fine. But against a top-tier true immortal like Lin Lei, it was difficult for her to exert her power in a head-on battle. Meng Yao's music could not affect Lin Lei's Dao heart at all. Lin Lei held his halberd and defeated Zither deity Meng Yao, then Book deity Yunju and Crown Prince Qin Su. As expected, Yunju was defeated in this battle. Even so, Yunju's performance still attracted a lot of praise. From the beginning to the end, Yunju seemed to have held back. Although she was defeated in the end, she did not look embarrassed at all. Many celestial kings secretly speculated that Book deity Yunju's combat strength was very likely to be ranked on the True Immortal Ranking Board. However, her ranking was not good in the elimination round, and she met Crown Prince Qin Su in advance, which led to her defeat. In the evening, on the Pure Lands side, the Arhat Ranking Board's battle was the first to end. This year's Arhat Ranking Board had been released. As expected, the first person on the Arhat Ranking Board, the Supreme Immortal, was Wunyan from the Meru Mountain of the Pure Lands. Wunyan had won all his battles, and he had won all his battles. There was no doubt that he was the Supreme Immortal. First on the Arhat Ranking Board, Wunyan second, Wu Gonun third, Wu fourth, Su Ba fifth, Tian Mu sixth, Determination seventh, Motionless eighth, Luo Du ninth, Mo 10th, Great Ninja. Meanwhile, the ranking battle in the Nine Firmament Immortal Realm was coming to an end. The first two battles were Qin Su against Zhuo Wuchen, and Junyu against Lin Lei. Qin Su and Junyu won. This meant that the title of Supreme Immortal could only be born between Qin Su and Junyu. This battle was between Lin Lei and Zhuo Wuchen. They were fighting for the third place on the True Immortal ranking. After an intense battle, Lin Lei won a Pyrrhic victory, while Zhuo Wuchen was defeated. He had no chance of entering the top 3 of the True Immortal role. Lin Lei dragged his injured body back to the Azure Firmament Immortal Domain. Lin Luo went up to him and comforted him. "Brother, congratulations. Mother was just praising you. Third place is already very good." Lin Lei shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was only ranked third on the True Immortal leaderboard. Of course, he wasn't satisfied. But this time, there was the chess goddess Junyu and Imperial Prince Qin Su. He was indeed no match for them. Lin Lei rubbed Lin Luo's head gently and said earnestly, "Little sister, don't think that Su Zimo is strong in the heavenly immortal realm and seems to be invincible. However, there are plenty of people who are stronger than him in the perfected immortal realm. Only those who enter the true self realm can be called true geniuses. What he has achieved so far is nothing." Lin Luo pursed her lips and said, "Brother, how do you know that he can't do it after entering the true self realm? In my opinion, his potential is much greater than yours." "Umph," Lin Lei said with some disdain. "When he is qualified to compete in the true immortal ranking and gets the third place, then he can compete with me. Lei, or you're still so full of yourself." Immortal King Ling Long shook her head and said, "You've been cultivating for so long and you think that you're invincible among your peers. You didn't expect that you would suffer such a great loss in Langfeng City. Now that you've suffered a setback in the true immortal ranking, you still don't reflect on yourself?" Lin Lei didn't dare refute Immortal King Ling Long's rebuke. He just lowered his head and remained silent. The next battle was the focus of everyone's attention. Imperial Prince Qin Su versus the chess goddess Junyu. Even the monks of the Pure Land of Bliss had gathered to watch the battle. "Zimo, who do you think will win?" Yunju asked. Su Zimo was still cultivating, as though he did not hear or notice anything. "Zimo? Yunju saw that Su Zimo was looking at the battle in front of him, but he seemed a little strange. He seemed to be in a trance. She couldn't help but feel worried. She touched him gently and called his name again. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo woke up from his cultivation state. During the 7 days of the Continent of the Nine Clouds meeting, he had cultivated with the help of the divine tree Jinmu. Qinglian's real body had grown at a terrifying speed. She had already reached the peak of the 9th level heavenly immortal realm. However, he hadn't sensed the threshold of the true first level yet. If he wanted to break through, he needed to continue comprehending. He needed a suitable opportunity. Now that Yunju had woken him up, he didn't plan to continue cultivating. He wanted to watch the final battle of the true immortal ranking. "Are you all right?" Yunju asked. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. He recalled Yunju's words and said, "In my opinion, Junyu has a higher chance. If it had been 1,000 years ago, Junyu and Qin Su might have been on par. But now, Junyu had obtained immortal King Linglong's inheritance. Her battle prowess had increased significantly. As dusk fell, the battle broke out. The two true immortal realm experts didn't try to probe each other. They just used their strongest trump cards. In a battle of this level, the slightest carelessness could lead to defeat. Junyu held the chessboard with her back facing the starry sky. The entire battlefield seemed to have turned into a chessboard. She was on the outside, controlling the fate of every chess piece. Even Qin Su was just a chess piece in her hands. Qin Su's methods were also extremely terrifying. His Darch bloodline was extremely powerful. He forcefully summoned his bloodline phenomenon. It was as if there were thousands of iron-blooded soldiers behind him. With a single order, he broke the chessboard. The battle between the two sides continued to escalate. They even used essence spirit secret techniques. Soon, it reached the climax and the outcome could be decided at any moment. Suddenly, Qin Su touched his glabella and took out a scarlet ancient book. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he quickly transformed into another him. The two of them looked identical. Even their cultivation realms were the same. It was a forbidden mystic manual, one of the 3 pure jade manuals, the Great Purity Jade Manual. The crowd was restless when they saw that. Qin Su alone was already able to fight chess deity Junyu to a draw. If the two Qin Su joined forces, how could Junyu resist? Back then, Su Zimo defeated Yin Ting completely, because he released the primordial beginning body. But now, Qin Su used the Grand Purity Jade Book to condense a Tao virtue body. Although the Tao virtue body's physical strength was average, its divine sense was extremely powerful. It could even release essence spirit secret techniques. On the battlefield, Junyu's expression was calm. She didn't panic when she saw Qin Su release this Tao virtue body. "In that case, I'll let you see what I'm capable of." Junyu's hands continuously formed hand seals. Her divine sense was greatly depleted. An incomparably huge pressure descended. It was as if the world was locked down and imprisoned. Junyu pointed at Qin Su and said softly, "Space-time imprisonment. Supreme ability, space-time imprisonment." Chapter 2601. Seeing this scene, the crowd was shocked and their expressions changed. The eyes of the various immortal kings also shone brightly. It was extremely difficult to comprehend a supreme divine power. Opportunities, talent, comprehension, and various other factors were indispensable. In the current heaven realm, Junyu was the only perfected immortal who had comprehended a supreme divine power. Even for all the immortal kings present, none of them were able to comprehend a supreme divine ability back then. It was no exaggeration to say that supreme divine powers were as rare as forbidden secret manuals. Moreover, ever since the true immortal ranking and Arhat ranking were established, any perfected immortal who could comprehend a supreme divine power was invincible among their peers. Without exception, they were all crowned as supreme perfected immortals. When Junyu released her supreme divine power and froze time, there was no longer any suspense in this battle. In terms of power, a supreme divine power could almost crush a perfected immortal. The eternal night immortal king of the supreme heaven immortal realm turned to look at the green sun immortal king and said, "I didn't expect such a monster to be born in the divine firmament immortal realm. And she's even a woman. It's amazing. It's indeed rare." The Green Sun Immortal King nodded slightly. The last woman who stunned the immortals was Immortal King Ling Long, of the Green Heaven Immortal Realm. Immortal King Ling Long came from the lower realm, and rose all the way to the Immortal King realm. This matter caused a huge commotion in the Nine Clouds Immortal Realm. The Eternal Night Immortal King's gaze swept past Immortal King Ling Long and said, "If you want to comprehend the space-time imprisonment, you have to reach an extremely high level in the Tao of time and space. I think this woman's Tao of space seems to have another master." The Eternal Night Immortal King was at the greater mastery of the Grotto Heaven realm, and was a peerless Immortal King. His cultivation level was even higher than Immortal King Ling Long's, so he naturally had good eyesight. Naturally, he could tell that Junyu had some traces of Immortal King Ling Long's Tao technique. In fact, Junyu had not comprehended this supreme divine power during the Divine Firmament Convention. It was because of the 3 days she played chess with Su Zimo in the room. On the 3rd day, she witnessed the entire process of Su Zimo solving the 8th nimble chess game, and gained a trace of inspiration. She finally comprehended this supreme divine power when she combined it with her own Tao technique. The Eternal Night Immortal King said, "In my opinion, there's no need to continue this battle. The chess deity Junyu should be the victor." "Exactly." Green Sun Immortal King nodded. After all, Qin Su was the emperor's son. His status was noble, and he had the support of the sovereign emperor. There was no need to harm his life for the title of true immortal. On the battlefield, after Qin Su released the moral body, he found that he and the moral body could not move. What was locked was not only time, but also space. Apart from the power of supreme divine abilities, true immortals had no other means to break free from the confinement of time and space. As the supreme divine ability descended, the battlefield suddenly became silent. Even the air froze, and all sound disappeared without a trace. In front of Junyu, Qin Su was like a fish on the chopping block, easily slaughtered. Junyu's expression was indifferent as she flicked her finger. A black chess piece cut through the void, and slowly headed towards Qin Su's forehead. Qin Su helplessly watched the black chess piece flying towards him, but he could not do anything. He was shocked and angry. This was the power of a supreme divine ability. On the other side, when Shi Wunyan saw this scene, a deep sense of fear flashed across the depths of his eyes. He was already the most outstanding monk in the Buddhist sect for 100,000 years. Even so, he had not comprehended a supreme divine ability. To be precise, the peerless divine ability that he mastered had touched the threshold of a supreme divine ability, but he had not truly cultivated it yet. At this moment, 2 tyrannical forces poured in and broke the confinement of the battlefield. Under the instructions of Long Night Immortal King and Green Sun Immortal King, Piao Xian Immortal King and Zen Master Hui Wen acted at the same time to save Qin Su and forcibly end the battle. Qin Su regained his freedom and looked at the black chess piece that was close at hand. He subconsciously took a few steps back and looked at Junyu opposite him. He cursed in his heart. Crazy woman! Although he had the life-saving item that his father gave him, Junyu would definitely not be able to kill him. However, the fear of not being able to control himself and not being able to move still made his heart palpitate with fear. Piao Xian Immortal King smiled slightly and said loudly, "Both of you are rare geniuses of the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm. Since the outcome has been decided, there is no need to fight to the death." Qin Su's expression was a little ugly. He snorted coldly and left with a flick of his sleeves. The battle for the True Immortal ranking had officially ended. First place on the True Immortal ranking, Fairy Junyu of the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Second place, Qin Su of the Grand Firmament Immortal Realm. Third place, Lin Lei of the Green Firmament Immortal Realm. Fourth place, Zhuo Wuchen of the Green Firmament Immortal Realm. Fifth place, Fairy Jialan of the Green Firmament Immortal Realm. Sixth place, Yun Mubai of the Green Firmament Immortal Realm. Seventh place, Ding Yuan of the Purple Firmament Immortal Realm. Eighth place, Shirgu of the Green Firmament Immortal Realm. Ninth place, Yu Hua of the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. 10th place, Fairy Ling Huang of the Red Firmament Immortal Realm. This time's True Immortal ranking was quite special. Not only were there 3 fairies occupying the 10 seats, But the supreme true immortal at the top was also a fairy. Since the establishment of the true immortal ranking, this was the first time. Moreover, there were no true immortals of the Jade Firmament Immortal Realm on the true immortal ranking. During the battle in Langfeng City, the 5 celestial city lords of the Jade Firmament Immortal Realm, who had the potential to compete for the true immortal ranking, were all killed by Araki Takeshi of the Demon Region. The true immortal ranking board and the Arhat ranking board were 2 huge lists hanging on the divine tree of Jianmu. There were a total of 20 true immortals, and each of their names was shining brightly. These 20 true immortals were the most powerful and the most outstanding geniuses of the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm and the Pure Lands in the past 100,000 years. In the past 100,000 years, the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm and the Pure Lands had given birth to countless true immortals. However, only these 20 true immortals were qualified to leave their names on the true immortal ranking board and the Arhat ranking board. The cultivators looked at the names on the true immortal ranking board with admiration and envy. To be able to leave one's name on the true immortal ranking board was definitely the greatest honor in one's life. Soon, the names of these 20 true immortals would spread throughout the 2 realms, the entire heaven realm, and be recorded in the history books. The celestial kings of the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm and the Pure Lands heaved a sigh of relief. Nothing had happened in the past 7 days. The Demon Region was quite peaceful. The True Immortal Ranking Board and the Arhat Ranking Board had been completed. Next, the top 100 True Immortals of the 2 realms would go to the Divine Tree of Jianmu to cultivate. The other True Immortals could also cultivate on the top of Jianmu Mountain. The Qi of heaven and earth there was much thicker than the spiritual veins of the other celestial mountains. The 9 Firmament meeting had come to an end. Before this, the imperial emperors and celestial kings of the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm and the Pure Lands had been worried about one thing. The Demon Region would do something strange. After all, in recent years, 2 peerless demons had returned to the world. Each of the demons was a great threat to the cultivators of the 2 realms. Nobody knew what the Demon Region would do during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Now it seemed that they had worried too much. The 2 lists had come to an end, but the crowd was still discussing enthusiastically. The true immortals who had participated in the 2 lists returned to the top of Jianmu Mountain to rest. They would go to the Divine Tree of Jianmu the next morning to cultivate. The 9 Firmament meeting seemed to be peaceful. Everything was going smoothly. At this moment, the true immortals, monks, celestial kings, and heavenly kings couldn't guess what would happen the next day. End of chapter. Chapter 2602. On the 8th day of the continent of the 9 clouds convention, the sun rose and dawn broke. The hell of Avicii was still dark and gloomy. In the darkness, one could vaguely see a figure sitting cross-legged motionless, as if he had merged with this hell. Suddenly, the figure bloomed with purple brilliance, dispelling the surrounding darkness, revealing a face with a silver mask. It was Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body was surrounded by a purple halo, with runes flowing on it. It was mysterious and powerful. After a while, the purple halo suddenly expanded, enveloping the entire huge secret room. Soon, the purple halo quickly retracted and entered Wu Dao's body. Wu Dao's original body stood up, 2 purple flames burning in his eyes. His aura had reached its peak. The real Wu Dao's body had reached perfection. When he was in the greater mastery of the true martial realm, Wu Dao's original body could rely on his physical strength to crush ordinary celestial kings in the small grotto heaven realm. However, if a celestial king released his small grotto heaven, Wu Dao's original body would find it difficult to suppress him. Back in the demon cave, Wu Dao's original body could kill several demon kings, only because it was the tomb of the world-exterminating demon emperor, and all his grotto heavens could not be released. Now, the real Wu Dao's body had reached perfection. Wu Dao's original body speculated that he could use his physical strength to destroy the small grotto heaven realm. In fact, Wu Dao's original body had not stepped into the next realm of Wu Dao. That realm corresponded to the grotto heaven realm. However, in terms of strength, the real Wu Dao's original body had reached perfection, and Wu Dao's original body could already suppress celestial kings in the Grotto Heaven realm. Of course, if he faced a peerless celestial king in the greater mastery of the Grotto Heaven realm, Wu Dao's original body would still find it difficult to resist once the other party released his large Grotto Heaven realm. There seemed to be only a one-word difference between small Grotto Heaven and large Grotto Heaven realm. However, in terms of strength, the gap was huge. Wu Dao's true body left the ceaseless pain and arrived above the Taiwei mountain. He casually punched the air. Ka ka ka. The void trembled as cracks appeared one after another. With Wu Dao's current strength, he didn't even need to rely on the prison-suppressing cauldron to tear open the void and perform large-scale teleportation. This was a power that only Grotto Heaven realm experts could control. Wu Dao's true body tore open the void, entered the space tunnel, and teleported back to the Heaven Baron sect. The Sky Wolf seemed to have sensed something. Its ears twitched, and it opened its eyes with extreme vigilance, only to see Wu Dao's true body descending in the sky above the Heaven Baron sect. Everyone has come to the Heaven Wasteland Palace to discuss something. The voice of Wu Dao's true body was transmitted to the ears of Thunder Emperor and the others with great precision. The 7 emotions demonic generals came out at the same time. In the Heaven Wasteland Palace. What? When Tian Lang heard Wu Dao's decision, he was startled and shouted, "You want to go to the Continent of the Nine Clouds meeting?" Heaven's Wrath Thunder Emperor and the others also frowned, their expressions solemn. The Continent of the Nine Clouds meeting is not only for the immortals of the Nine Clouds immortal realm, but also for the monks of the Pure Land of Bliss. I heard that the 2 realms will send more than 20 peerless immortal kings and more than 100 ordinary immortal kings for this Continent of the Nine Clouds meeting. This is no small matter. The Thunder Emperor had a blood feud with the Great Jin Celestial Nation. His son, daughter-in-law, and his best friend, true immortal Zhangya, had all been killed by the Great Jin Celestial Nation. However, the Thunder Emperor hadn't taken any further action in all these years. The Thunder Emperor knew that the Heaven Baron sect's current strength was not enough to fight against the Great Jin Celestial Nation. He was only at the Lesser Grotto Heaven realm, so he couldn't defeat Monarch Jin, who was at the Greater Grotto Heaven realm. Moreover, the Great Jin Celestial Nation was located in the Divine Firmament Immortal realm. If a force from the Demon realm attacked the Great Jin Celestial Nation, the Divine Firmament Palace wouldn't sit idly by. Even the other sects in the Divine Firmament Immortal realm would most likely stand up. The Thunder Emperor knew that the Heaven Baron sect was just starting out. In terms of strength, it was far from being comparable to the Great Jin Celestial Nation, let alone fighting against the Divine Firmament Immortal realm. Now that Wu Dao's main body was going to the Continent of the Nine Clouds meeting, it wasn't just fighting against the Divine Firmament Immortal realm, but the entire Continent of the Nine Clouds, and even the Pure Land of Bliss. It was no different from hitting a rock with an egg. "It's okay," Wu Dao's main body said. "I made another breakthrough during this seclusion." Everyone's spirits were lifted, and their faces were filled with joy. Oh! The Thunder Emperor's divine sense probed Wu Dao's main body, and he was puzzled. He couldn't see the cultivation level of Wu Dao's main body, but he could vaguely sense that Wu Dao's main body didn't control the power of the Grotto Heaven realm. In other words, Wu Dao's main body hadn't reached the Grotto Heaven realm yet. "Can you defeat an immortal king?" the Thunder Emperor asked. Wu Dao's main body said frankly, "It's not a problem to deal with ordinary immortal kings, but peerless immortal kings can't." The Thunder Emperor wanted to say something but stopped. There were more than 20 peerless immortal kings at the Continent of the Nine Clouds convention, but when he saw the determination in Wu Dao's main body's eyes, it seemed that he had made up his mind to go, so he didn't try to persuade him anymore. He said in a deep voice, "I'll go down and make arrangements. Gather the army, and get ready to go together." "No need." Wu Dao's main body shook his head slightly and said, "I'll take 2 people with me to the Continent of the Nine Clouds convention, Qiu Siluo and Gu Tongyu." Qiu Siluo's heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly remembered something. Back then, when he heard that the Zither immortal Meng Yao had sent people to chase them to the demon region, Wu Dao's main body had expressed his intention to stand up for them. It was said that the 4 fairies had gone to the continent of the 9 Clouds convention. Now, Wu Dao's main body wanted to take them with him. He definitely wanted to avenge them. Gu Tongyo's eyes were gloomy, and he looked at Qiu Siluo. Obviously, he had also guessed this point. Qiu Siluo hurriedly said, "Patriarch, we both understand your intentions, but Patriarch, please don't put yourself in danger for us." Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and interrupted Qiu Siluo. He said, "Your matter is only one of the reasons. I'm going to the continent of the 9 Clouds convention this time for another purpose." "I'll go too," Yin Beichen said coldly. He didn't ask about the intentions of Wu Dao's main body at all, and he didn't intend to ask. He only knew that no matter what Wu Dao's main body did, no matter how strong the opponent was, he would choose to fight side by side with him. "It's so lively. I definitely won't miss it," Demoness Ji said with a smile. "Back then in the demon cave, the 2 of us managed to escape from death. What's there to fear about the continent of the 9 Clouds convention?" "Amipa." Ming Zhen whispered the name of Buddha and said, "I'll go too." Tianlang was extremely reluctant. He was originally hiding in a corner and pretending to be dead. Now that everyone in the main hall had stepped forward, he couldn't hide even if he wanted to. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. "All of you just want to show off. When the time comes, you won't even know how you died." Tianlang cursed in his heart and asked tentatively, "How about I guard the home?" Wu Dao's main body didn't give Tianlang any other choice. His figure moved, and he rode on Tianlang's back. He said, "All right, everyone follow me. Just watch from the side. Without my command, no one is to attack. Brother Feng, when the time comes, please take care of the others." Wu Dao's main body reminded again. Among them, only the Thunder Emperor had cultivated to the Grotto Heaven realm and could protect himself to a certain extent. After everything was arranged properly, Wu Dao's main body took the 7 Emotions Demon General and quietly left the Heaven Baron sect, heading in the direction of the Divine Tree. Chapter 2603. On the 8th day of the Jimu Mountain, the first rays of the morning sun shone on the Divine Tree, enveloping the True Immortal ranking and the Arhat ranking. The names of the 20 geniuses on the ranking list shone brightly. They represented supreme glory and made countless cultivators envious. From today onwards, only the top 100 cultivators on the True Immortal ranking list and the Arhat ranking list were qualified to cultivate under the Divine Tree. Most cultivators could only cultivate on the top of the Divine Tree. After a night of rest, the 20 geniuses on the True Immortal ranking list and the Arhat ranking list had recovered and were in high spirits. Qin Su, who was ranked 2nd on the True Immortal ranking list, walked straight to the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Yin Zhu was about to go to the Divine Tree. When she saw Qin Su, she frowned slightly. She glanced at Su Zimo and stopped. Junyu seemed to have sensed something and also stopped. Qin Su walked through the crowd and stood in front of Su Zimo. He looked down at Su Zimo, who was sitting on the ground. "Su Zimo." Qin Su called out to him. Su Zimo was resting with his eyes closed. He had already sensed Qin Su's arrival, but he did not pay attention to him. When Qin Su spoke, he slowly opened his eyes. He did not get up and just asked indifferently, "What's the matter?" A cold light flashed in Qin Su's eyes. As the Imperial Prince, he had a high status. What's more, he was a true immortal, and had just won the 2nd place on the True Immortal ranking list. How could this divine immortal from the lower world not stand up to greet him? Qin Su quickly recovered and smiled. "Su Zimo, I'm here to make a deal with you. It's enough for you to reach the sky in a single bound." Oh, Su Zimo's expression did not change, as if he was unmoved. Although Qin Su had a smile on his face, Qin Su's spiritual sense could sense the hostility in his heart. After a moment of silence, Qin Su was the Imperial Prince and suddenly smiled. He was born noble, I'm just saying, and had a powerful bloodline. Why are you all so serious? He looked down on cultivators from the lower world. Qin Su turned around. He seemed to be discussing a deal with Su Zimo. Over
but
at
there
the
was a
Pure Land
trace of
side,
arrogance in his
Sure
words.
Wunyan looked at Su
Instead,
Zemo's direction
it seemed
with a
like he
deep
was
gaze.
giving alms to Su
Not
Zemo.
only Chin Su
said,
but Sure Wunyan
I'll
had
get straight
also
to the
noticed Su
point.
Zemo.
As long
the
as
Great
you are
Summer
willing to
Mountain
hand
seal
over the
was
pure
a
jade
secret
book,
technique
you will
of the
gain
pure
the friendship of
Summer
my
Mountain
Mountain
family.
Su Zemo
No
had
matter what
obtained the
happens in the
cultivation
future,
method of this
you can
secret
come
technique
to Supreme Firmament
and could
Palace
cultivate
to look
the Great
for me.
Summer Mountain
Of
seal
course,
to such a
if
level.
you choose to
It
leave
was
Cosmos
obvious that
Academy
he had
and join
received the
Supreme
true
Firmament
teachings
Palace,
of a Buddhist monk.
I will also consider
Since it was a
it.
Buddhist true
It's even
inheritance,
to the extent
the
that
most
I can take
qualified
you under my
person to
wing
inherit it
and
should be
personally
him.
guide you.
The small
Perhaps
disturbance
you'll
here
have the
quickly
chance to
subsided.
cultivate the Tao
100
arts in
true
the Sky
immortals
Jade
and
Manual.
100 arhats
Su
set
Zemo
off
sneered inwardly
and arrived at the
this
divine
Chin Su wanted
tree
him to
under
hand over the pure
envious
jade book.
gazes.
Just because
Everyone
of a
sat
promise.
down, and a
Not
fairy from the
interested.
Crimson Heaven
Su
immortal
Zemo
realm
refused
stood out
without
and
even
smiled.
thinking about it.
There's plenty
Chin
of
Su's
time.
face sank.
You don't have
He
to be in a
squinted his
hurry to
eyes and
cultivate.
slowly said,
I'm good at
You
tea.
should know that I am
can pour a
determined
cup
to
of
get the pure
fragrant tea
jade
for
book.
you all.
I have
Good.
many ways to
Sure
deal with
go.
you.
Who was
I'm giving
ranked
you this
eighth on the
chance,
true
so you
immortal
better
leaderboard.
cherish it.
Laughed
Don't
and
regret
said,
it when the time
I've long
comes.
heard that Lady
Chin
Luo
Su
Hua's
did not
tea
hide
skills
his
are
purpose,
unparalleled.
and even blatantly
Today I'm honored to
threatened.
taste it.
What do you want to do?
Chin Su
Yinju
Moonlight
could
Sword
not
Immortal,
bear to listen
and
anymore.
the others nodded.
She stood in
Sure
front of Su
Wunyan
Zemo
and
and
the other
mocked.
arhats did
As
not
a
have
prince
any
and a true
resistance
immortal,
to the immortal
you
tea.
dare to threaten a
Lady
Sky
Luo
Immortal?
Hua smiled
Do you have any
and took
shame?
out the tea set that she
Cosmos
had prepared
Academy is
earlier
not
from her
without
storage
people.
bag.
She
She also
skillfully
stood
brewed the
out.
tea.
The
Junyu
boiled
turned around
spiritual spring
and
water
stood in
was
front
poured
of
into
Chin
the
Su.
fresh tea leaves.
Her eyes were
The
cold as
mist
she
was
said,
dense,
Chin
and the
Su,
tea
do you
fragrance
want to
was
continue?
refreshing. This
The
time,
people in front
if you
of
have
her,
the guts,
especially
don't
the
let
20
the immortal king
geniuses on the
save
true
you.
immortal leaderboard
In the blink of an
Arhat
eye,
roll,
three
were
fairies
the
stood
future
out.
of the nine
One
heavens
of them
immortal
was the
realm,
true immortal
and the pure
leaderboard's
lands.
#1.
If nothing
supreme
unexpected
true immortal
happened,
Junyu, the
the
geniuses
pressure
on
on
the
Chin
two
Su
leaderboards
increased
would have a
sharply.
great chance to enter the Grotto Heaven realm and become celestial kings. For many people, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build connections. Lady Luo Hua had obviously prepared for this. She wanted to get closer to the people present, especially the geniuses on the two leaderboards. Lady Luo Hua personally brewed the immortal tea and handed it to the 20 geniuses on the true immortal leaderboard and Arhat roll. Then, she sent the rest of the immortal tea to the other cultivators one by one. Good tea. Moonlight Sword Immortal savored it carefully and praised. It's really good. Chin Su also nodded slightly and said, It's a pity that it seems to be missing something. At this moment, Ming Yao smiled and said, If you don't mind, I would like to play a song for you. Wonderful. Yun Mubai's eyes lit up, and he clapped his hands and smiled. Chin Su, Zhuo Wuchen, and the other arhats were all excited. Zither Immortal Ming Yao was one of the 4 fairies, and her reputation was far above Lady Luo Hua's. Among the immortals and monks present, not many had heard Ming Yao's music before. Now that they had the chance to listen to her music, even some arhats were tempted, let alone the true immortals present. In fact, Ming Yao's actions were somewhat similar to Luo Hua's. These people were the top geniuses in the heaven realm. If she could get to know them, her reputation would rise to another level. Few people could hear her music, not because she was arrogant in her heart. It was because most people were useless to her. They were not worthy of her playing the zither. Chapter 2604. Meng Yao sat on the ground and took out a guqin. She placed it across her knees and gently stroked the strings with her jade-like fingers. A faint celestial sound rang out. As soon as the sound of the guqin started, everyone's attention was instantly taken away, and they were unconsciously immersed in it. Even the immortal tea in the hands of the cultivators became tasteless. The sound of the guqin clearly rang in the ears of the immortals and monks. She was originally from the divine firmament immortal domain. The surroundings seemed to become extremely empty. She stole an ancient and only the sound lingered. That I took a fancy Meng to Yao's left hand pressed the strings to pick the sound while her right hand stroked the strings. His eyebrows slightly. Her movements were complicated and dazzling. Why haven't I heard of her? The sound of the guqin was deep and distant. Like the moonlight sword immortal smiled faintly people and said, reminisce about the past. I heard that she's only a sky immortal, like not the sound of wind chimes. She's on a completely different level from fellow Sometimes Taoist it was Meng soft Yao. And long, like a fairy whispering in the ear. A sky immortal is worthy of being called the like a yellow bell. There's really no one in the demon domain. The song ended, but the sound lingered. I heard that the immortals and monks were still immersed in it, weak, and did not recover. She's one of the 7 emotions demon generals of the Heaven Baron sect. Although she was disdainful of some of Meng Yao's actions, the Heaven Baron sect, she had to admit that Meng Yao was indeed the hearts outstanding of the in terms of guqin skills. Over the years, she was indeed worthy of the title of guqin immortal. Emperor Bosun clapped and the world devastated. I have long heard of guqin immortal's music. The most famous sect was the Heaven Baron by the mortal world. It was not that the Heaven Baron sect was strong, lingering for 3 days. But the patriarch of the Heaven Baron sect was really terrifying. It is indeed worthy of its reputation. Araki Takashi, fellow Taoist, you are too kind. Curled his lips slightly and said, the so-called 7 emotions demon generals are nothing to be afraid of. Your guqin is moving. Apart from Feng Cantion, I admire you, who's a demon the immortals king. And monks the rest are all sky immortals. Meng Yao looked humble and calm. I heard that the patriarch of the Heaven Baron proud sect. In her heart. Araki After the song, demon, Meng Yao instantly became the center of attention. He wreaked havoc and attracted everyone's attention. In the Jade Heaven immortal domain, immortal tea had already been forgotten by the immortals and killed the lords of the 5 immortal cities. Was indignant. Fairy Jialan but she did not dare to show it. I heard that when he went through the tribulation, Yinju saw the scene and smiled faintly. She was not surprised. I wonder if it's true. She and Meng Yao were both in the divine firmament immortal realm and said, and were both princesses of the immortal kingdom. Demon domains. They had known each other for a long time and knew Meng Yao better. No matter where she went, of antiquity had only had a way to become the center of attention and dazzle everyone. How could Araki Takashi attract the 10th heavenly was also unaffected by Meng Yao's music. The moonlight sword immortal also nodded and looked at sitting quietly beside her and smiled. Who was not far away and said, Emo always seemed to have a way to immerse herself in her own world. This is too ridiculous, and no one could affect her. It can't be true. Under the divine tree of Jinmu. The true celestial and Arhat rankings were hanging high. She just replied calmly. The geniuses were gathered, said in a low voice, and their heroism reached whether the 10th heavenly tribulation they were pointing at the mountains and rivers. Araki Takashi's there was also a fairy beside them. And I've seen with my own eyes that the lords of the 5 immortal cities and fascinated could not withstand a single blow from him, who was ranked 6th on the true celestial the faces of the geniuses on the true immortal ranking board and Arhat ranking board is not only the Zither celestial of the 5 immortal cities were all experts who had the potential to compete for the true immortal ranking celestial realm. Linlei said that the lords of the 5 immortal cities could not withstand a single blow from Araki Takashi. Also nodded and said, even compared to the ancient Guqin Dao masters, fellow Taoist Meng Yao is not inferior. In fact, she's even better. Wu Go Nun, who was ranked 2nd on the Arhat list, suddenly said, I heard that in this life, there is a Zither devil in the demon domain. It seems that his attainments in the Zither Dao are not shallow. When Meng Yao heard the 2 words Zither demon, the smile on her face froze. But soon she recovered and said, I know a little about this Zither demon. Was he implying that they could not withstand a single blow from Araki Takashi? Humph. Shinsu snorted and said mockingly, after all, you're from the lower world. You're too timid. You're scared after being threatened. What did you say? Linlei glared at him and questioned loudly. Shi Wunyan smiled and said,
Araki Takashi is the supreme true demon. Our two realms also have supreme true immortals and supreme arhats. Benefactor Lin Lei, why do you want to boost the morale of others and destroy our own? During the battle in the Devil's Den, all the news pointed to the world devastator demon emperor. Almost no one paid attention to the existence of Araki Takashi. The cultivators did not know that Araki Takashi was also present at that time. He even killed several immortal kings in the Devil's Den. Junyu looked in the direction of the demon's den and said slowly, "No matter what, Araki Takashi is a powerful and terrifying opponent. If there's a chance, I'd like to fight with him to see who's better." Junyu was warlike by nature, and had just won the title of Supreme True Immortal. There were not many cultivators who were qualified to be her opponent. Araki Takashi, who was known as the Supreme True Demon, was one of them. Chinsa sneered and stood up. He pointed in the direction of the demon's den and said loudly, "If Araki Takashi dares to take half a step into the Nine Clouds celestial realm, you don't have to do anything. I can kill him alone." Supreme True Demon? 10th Heavenly Tribulation? They are nothing in front of me. Is that so? At this moment, a voice came from the depths of the demon's denver. Chapter 2605. Hearing the voice, the cultivators under the divine tree were startled and looked toward the source of the voice. Mo Qing's body trembled, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Is it him? He actually dares to come. Mo Qing subconsciously looked at Yunju, who was beside her, with an inquiring look. Yunju was also a little surprised at this time. Obviously, she knew the identity of the person and nodded at Mo Qing. After receiving Yunju's reply, Mo Qing was finally sure. She also quickly looked in the direction of the demon area. Between the immortal area and the demon area, there was a bottomless abyss, and the divine tree was rooted in this abyss. According to legend, this abyss was created by the world-destroying demon emperor in a rage, and it almost split the heaven realm into two. Fortunately, the divine tree was there, and its countless roots connected the two areas, so the heaven realm was not completely separated. In the immortal demon abyss, there were layers of fog that blocked one's vision and divine sense. In the direction of the demon area, through the fog, a few figures could be vaguely seen walking over. Yunju turned to look at Su Zimo, who was at the peak of Jinmu Mountain, and she was puzzled. Even with her thoughts, she could not understand why Su Zimo would ask Araki Takashi to come over at this time. What was Araki Takashi trying to do? This was the Nine Heavens Convention, and the geniuses of the two areas had gathered. There was also a group of celestial kings. Even if Araki Takashi could suppress the true celestials on the two lists, how could he deal with more than 100 celestial kings present? As if he had been prepared for this, there were more than 20 peerless celestial kings among them. Under the divine tree of Jinmu, Takashi had the perfected immortal realm experts were shocked and could break the void and stood up one after another at any time. They looked at Wu Dao, the celestial king was slowly walking over and sealed the void with unfriendly expressions and vigilant expressions. Leaving. Araki Takashi was the most notorious demon in the demon realm in recent years. They stood up one after another. The cultivators didn't dare to be in the direction of the demon area. Junyu's eyes were fixed on Wu Dao's cultivators walked out of the fog. And her eyes were filled with battle intent. The person in the lead was wearing a purple robe also stared at Wu Dao's body without blinking. He was riding a huge heavenly playfulness and interest in his eyes. And he slowly walked over, as if he wanted to see something from him. The man in his mount walked at the forefront. Unfortunately, emitting a strong pressure, was wearing the infernal domains Araki Takashi, and his body seemed to be shrouded in a layers from the jade heaven celestial realm. No one could see recognized Wu Dao behind Wu Dao's body. They said with hatred and fear in their voices, side by side. It's Araki Takashi. The cultivator on the far left was tall and had long hair. As he strode forward, surprised, he exuded a heroic aura. Of course, his eyes were all like the immortal kings had heard of Araki Takashi's name long ago. However, although this was the first time most of the lot over the years had seen Wu Dao many celestial kings from the divine firmament probed the martial Dao body several times, him immediately, but they couldn't find out the martial Dao body saw an old friend from Tianhuan. However, she was excited and overjoyed. True body exuded. She wanted to stand up. The immortal kings could roughly determine that Wu Dao, separated by the abyss of divinities and demons, into the grotto heaven realm, looked in their direction, not even reaching the half-step grotto heaven realm. Celestial King was just that in the eyes of the immortal kings, and didn't act rashly. Araki Takashi was naturally not worth mentioning. Celestial country because of Emperor Bosen behind Araki Takashi. that
he
the
dares
immortal
to show
kings
himself
were so afraid of.
After all,
why did Araki
he has already
Takashi come
formed
to Grotto
Heaven?
Heaven?
Did his
become a
actions
celestial
represent
king?
Monarch Bosen?
He must have some
Was
tricks
Emperor
up his
Bosen
sleeve,
nearby?
said
The
another
immortal
celestial
kings of the
king.
two realms
Celestial
looked at
King
each other
Sanya sneered
and
and
communicated with their
"So what?
consciousness.
He's just a
They decided
celestial
not to
king
make
of
a
a
move
small
for the
Grotto
time
Heaven.
being.
His
And
battle
observe
strength is
Araki
limited.
Takashi's next
He's worlds
move.
apart from
Immortal
peerless
King Ling
celestial
Yong
kings.
frowned slightly.
Next to
She had
Feng
learned about
Cantian was
Araki
a cold-looking
Takashi's
man
true
with a
identity
long
from
sword
the
in his
human
hand.
Emperor Lin Zhan.
He was Shura Yin
So she
Beichen.
glanced at
Next to
Suzumo
Yin
discreetly.
Beichen was a
Even
beautiful
she
girl
couldn't
in a
guess
pink
the
dress.
purpose of Araki
She smiled
Takashi's
at the
visit.
continent of the 9 clouds, as if she could make everyone fall head over heels for her. Many cultivators looked at the girl's smile and couldn't help but be mesmerized. Demons and heretics. A celestial king exclaimed softly. He used a sound domain secret technique to wake many cultivators up. Hehe. Demoness G wasn't angry. She chuckled and winked at the crowd. Her every move, every frown, and every smile was filled with charm. Moreover, it was without a trace, as if it came from her heart and flowed naturally. Next to Demoness G stood a young monk. His eyes were clear and bright, and he seemed to be filled with infinite wisdom. Ming Zhen. On the Pure Land's side, a Buddhist recognized Ming Zhen and murmured in surprise, "He's not dead." Back then, the group of monks who had entered Avicii had all died there, except for Ming Zhen. Everyone thought that Ming Zhen had died. They didn't expect him to still be alive. He had joined the Tianhuang sect and joined the Demon Zone. Next to Ming Zhen was a man and a woman. The man was holding a jade flute with a melancholic expression. The woman was holding a zither in one hand, and the man's arm in the other. Her eyes were filled with love. From afar, they looked like a pair of immortal couples. "It's them." Zither Fairy's expression turned cold when she saw the man and woman. Murderous intent flashed in her eyes. The patriarch of the Tianhuang sect, Araki Takashi, had brought the 7 Emotions Demon General to the continent of the 9 Clouds meeting. It was also the first time he had appeared in front of the crowd. It was a huge shock. There weren't many people on the other side. Even if Araki Takashi's mount was included, there were only 8 of them. However, these 8 people were facing the heroes of the 9 Clouds Immortal Region and the Pure Lands. In terms of aura, they weren't inferior at all. Chapter 2606. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, Feng Tian had made a name for himself in the heaven world. He had obtained the title of a true celestial at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Now he had become a celestial king. Such a big group of people couldn't suppress him at all. Tian Lang's former master was Imperial Emperor Bosun. He had seen even bigger groups of people. This was nothing. Since he had already come here, there was no way out. Why should he be afraid? Who are those people next to Feng Tian? They must be the 7 Emotions demonic generals of the Tianhuang sect. They've become famous in the demon region. It turns out that apart from Feng Tian, who's a celestial king, the others are just celestial immortals. Hehe. I thought they were some incredible strong cultivators. Many cultivators were discussing on the top of Jianmu Mountain. Most of the people at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds were true celestial immortals. They didn't take Yin Beichen and the other celestial immortals seriously. Why did Araki Takashi and Feng Tian come here with a few celestial immortals? Could it be that the tiny Tianhuang sect wants to fight against our 2 territories? Hehe. Unless Araki Takashi doesn't want to live anymore. In the eyes of the celestial immortals and monks, Araki Takashi and the others were too weak. They weren't worth mentioning. The meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds was a gathering of the heroes of the 2 territories. There were more than 100,000 true celestial immortals and more than 100 celestial kings. If all the celestial immortals attacked together, Araki Takashi and the others would be drowned. A cultivator sighed and said, "Anyway, Araki Takashi is really brave. He only brought a few people, and he dared to come to the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Only the ignorant are fearless." Another person disagreed. Under the divine tree of Jianmu Mountain, "Araki Takashi, you still dare to come to the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds?" Chinsu looked at Araki Takashi coldly and said slowly, "Do you think the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds is like the Feast of Peaches? You can come and go as you please?" Chinsu had a supreme true immortal,
a supreme Arhat, 200 peak true immortals, and a group of immortal kings behind him. Naturally, he had nothing to fear. Zhuo Wuqian unsheathed his immaculate sword and flicked it with his finger. The sword made a clear sound as he said, "I've heard that Araki Takashi is a supreme titled martial artist. My immaculate sword would like to ask for guidance." The Moonlight Sword Immortal smiled faintly and said, "There's no need to use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. If he dares to come, then let him have a taste of my Moonlight Sword. Araki Takashi is a cruel murderer who dares to take half a step into the Nine Firmaments immortal region. I'm willing to kill him and send him into the cycle of reincarnation." Arhat Suba, ranked 4th on the Arhat list, said in a deep voice, "Under the divine tree of the Jinmu, the immortals and monks all spoke boldly, their auras soaring to the heavens." Emoching couldn't take it anymore. She sneered and said, "If you have the guts, why don't you cross the immortal demon abyss and fight him?" The surrounding voices suddenly paused. Emoching's words poked at everyone's sore spot. The immortals and monks looked very confident, but no one dared to cross the immortal demon abyss rashly and take the initiative to attack Wu Dao's real body. Firstly, Araki Takashi was too fierce after all, and he was also known as the Supreme True Demon. He had caused havoc at the Feast of Peaches and killed people in Langfeng City. This kind of battle record was too shocking. Secondly, if they crossed the immortal demon abyss, it meant that Araki Takashi had the advantage. Moreover, there was Feng Cantion, a celestial king. Who would dare to rush over? Chinsa sneered and said, "Why should we go to the demon area? If Araki Takashi has the guts, he can come to the Nine Firmaments immortal region." I still say the same thing. If Araki Takashi dares to take half a step into the Nine Firmaments immortal region, I will make his blood splatter on the spot, and his corpse be separated from his body. As soon as he finished speaking, Araki Takashi looked at Chio Siluo behind him and nodded slightly. Then, in front of everyone's eyes, Araki Takashi rode on the heavenly wolf and took Chio Siluo, the Zither demon, across the immortal demon abyss. In the blink of an eye, Araki Takashi had arrived at the Nine Firmaments immortal region and was heading toward Chin Su and the others. Hiss! Araki Takashi really dared to come over. The crowd was shocked. Who wants to make my blood splatter on the spot and my corpse be separated from his body? Wu Dao's real body looked around the crowd with cold eyes, and his aura was oppressive. Except for Jun Yu, Shi Wunyan, and the other cultivators on the true celestial ranking board, the rest of the people avoided his gaze and did not dare to look at him. Wu Dao's real body's eyes finally stopped on Chinsu. Suddenly, Chinsu felt the pressure increase sharply. An indescribable sense of fear shrouded his head and could not be removed. But at this time, he was already riding a tiger and could not get off. He had just bragged and naturally could not take it back. He could only bite the bullet and say in a deep voice, "I said it you." Before Chinsu could finish his words, Wu Dao's real body had already attacked. This time, there was no warning sign. Wu Dao's real body moved and left the heavenly wolf's back. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Chinsu. Wu Dao's real body did not say a word to Chinsu. He raised his hand and punched. No one could describe the horror of this punch. The speed and strength of this punch had reached the peak. Chinsu's pupils contracted violently, and his face changed color in horror. There were many genuine celestials present, and there were even supreme genuine celestials and supreme arhats. But at this moment, he felt that the people around him seemed to have disappeared. He was the only one left facing Wu Dao's real body. In fact, this was exactly the case. Wu Dao's real body suddenly attacked, and the speed was so fast that no one present could react. No one expected that with so many experts around, and an immortal king holding down the fort, Desolate Marshal would dare to attack first even though he had come alone. I can't beat him. I can't block him. In an instant, only these two thoughts were left in Chinsu's mind. The punch of Wu Dao's real body made him feel a long-lost aura of death. Even when he was fighting for the genuine celestial board, facing Jun Yu's space-time imprisonment, he did not have such a strong sense of crisis. Run! Chinsu was extremely decisive.
Without thinking, he directly abandoned his physical body. His primordial spirit left his body, wrapped the Dao fruit and an ancient book, and fled into the distance. Bang! Wu Dao's real body smashed Qin Si's physical body into pieces with a punch. The terrifying power of the punch exuded a scorching heat. Before the flesh and blood could reform, it was burned into ashes by the heat of the punch. Just one punch, and Qin Si's physical body was completely destroyed. The power of this punch was not only limited to this. Qin Si's reaction was extremely fast. But just as his primordial spirit left his physical body, Su Zimo's punch came down, and while shattering his physical body, it also enveloped his primordial spirit. This punch seemed to have caused the surrounding void to collapse. No matter how Qin Si struggled, his primordial spirit and Dao fruit could not escape, and could only sink deeper and deeper. Seeing that Qin Si's primordial spirit was about to be destroyed by Wu Dao's real body, the ancient book next to the Dao fruit suddenly bloomed with a bright brilliance, filled with a powerful pressure that was far beyond the genuine celestial realm. A terrifying aura burst out and instantly helped Qin Si escape from the crisis and escape. Chapter 2607. The ball of light that was released from the Taiqing Jade Book caused Wu Dao's true body to feel a sharp pain in his palm. Wu Dao's true body frowned slightly and was slightly surprised. Wu Dao's true body had already reached the perfected realm. The power that could make him feel pain definitely did not come from Qin Si. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a moment and soon understood. As a forbidden secret book, the Taiqing Jade Book was extremely precious. Although one of the 3 pure jade books was obtained by Qin Si, the imperial emperor behind him still left some restrictions on the ancient book to prevent it from being taken away by outsiders. Wu Dao's true body was calm. It would be great if he could get the Taiqing Jade Book, but it did not matter if he could not. His goal this time was not the Taiqing Jade Book. Qin Si used the restriction left by his father to protect his primordial spirit, and escaped back to the peak of Jinmu Mountain with the Taiqing Jade Book and the Dao fruit. He was almost scared out of his wits. If not for the restriction left by his father, he would have died. Even so, he suffered heavy losses. His physical body was destroyed by Wu Dao's true body and turned into ashes. He could not even be reborn with a drop of blood. The crowd was in an uproar. No one expected Wu Dao's true body to be so powerful that he dared to attack the Thearch's son in front of everyone. Moreover, he attacked with a killing move. No one expected that Qin Si could not even block a punch from Wu Dao's true body, and was forced to abandon his physical body and flee in panic. One had to know that Qin Si was not only the Thearch's son, but also the second on the true immortal leaderboard. If even he could not block a punch from Araki Takashi, who else could be a match for Araki Takashi? The Eternal Knight Immortal King was furious. He suddenly stood up and stared at Wu Dao's true body with a gloomy face. The scene just now was too sudden. It was too late for him to save him. At this moment Qin Si returned. The Eternal Knight Immortal King wanted to make trouble, but he did not have a good reason. After all, this was a battle between true immortals. As a celestial king, he didn't want to forcefully attack Araki Takashi because of his reputation. Furthermore, he was still uncertain about Araki Takashi's situation. He didn't know if Bo Sun was nearby, so he didn't dare to act rashly. The other immortal kings had the same thought. The fact that Araki Takashi dared to bring these people over in such a domineering and fearless manner meant that Bo Sun was most likely nearby. Under the Divine Builder Tree, Junyu, Shirwunyan, and the other immortals and monks all looked solemn and nervous. They stared at Wu Dao without blinking, afraid that he would attack again. That punch from Wu Dao's main body just now had also frightened the others. If they were in Qin Si's position, they would most likely die. As a true immortal, Junyu decisively stood up when the other immortals were stunned by the aura of Wu Dao's main body and fell into silence. Junyu withstood the huge pressure from Araki Takashi's body and asked in a deep voice, "May I know why Araki Takashi from the demon region has come this time?" Wu Dao's main body only punched Qin Si casually and didn't continue to attack. "I heard that your 2 regions are holding the Continent of the 9 Clouds meeting, so I came to take a look." Wu Dao's main body's voice sounded a little deep behind the silver mask. And also to settle some grudges. What grudges? Junyu asked. Zither immortal, for a zither, chased my zither and flute devils for many years, and even chased me to the demon region. Wu Dao's main body's eyes turned to zither immortal Meng Yao and said, Is there no one in your Sky Baron sect? Meng Yao was being stared at by Wu Dao's main body, and knew that she couldn't hide, so she could only brace herself and stand up. Araki Takashi, what do you want? I'll give you a chance. Wu Dao's main body said indifferently. Since you're called Zither Immortal, then compete with my Zither Devil. If you win, I'll spare your life. Humph. Meng Yao glanced at Chiu Siluo and sneered. What Zither Devil? She called herself that, right? What qualifications does she have to compete with me? I forgot to say something. Wu Dao's main body didn't explain and continued. If you don't compete, then I'll kill you. You. Meng Yao was shocked and angry, and was speechless for a moment. From Araki Takashi's words, it seemed that killing her was as simple as crushing an ant. As one of the 4 fairies, she had always been the moon surrounded by stars, and was pursued by countless cultivators, who didn't treat her with respect when they saw her, afraid that they would be rude. Now, not only was this Araki Takashi of the demon realm rude to her, but he also didn't know how to be gentle with her, and kept saying that he wanted to kill her. The most terrifying thing was that this person was unscrupulous and domineering. Meng Yao didn't doubt that if she said no, this Araki Takashi in front of her would kill her without hesitation. Junyu and the others frowned, confused. The immortal kings on the peak of Jianmu Mountain also had strange expressions. This Araki Takashi of the demon realm came this time to compete with Meng Yao in Zither skills? Meng Yao was called Zither Immortal, so she was naturally outstanding in Zither Dao. This person actually wanted to compete with Meng Yao in Zither Dao? Haha. The Moonlight Sword Immortal chuckled and shook her head slightly. This is ridiculous. A Stage 5 Heavenly Immortal wants to challenge a true immortal Meng Yao. Chiu Siluo's cultivation was only a Stage 5 Heavenly Immortal, so there was a huge gap between him and Meng Yao. In the eyes of the crowd, the two of them were on completely different levels. This isn't fair, is it? Mo Qing secretly transmitted her voice to Yunju. She subconsciously sided with Wu Dao and said worriedly, the gap between the two of them is so big. How can the Zither demon win? Yunju pondered and said, if it's just a competition of Zither skills, it doesn't have much to do with cultivation. Alright. After a moment of silence, Meng Yao agreed. Then she sneered and said, since you're asking for it, don't blame me. Meng Yao sat on the ground and placed the Zither on her knees. She looked at Chiu Siluo and said, come, let me see how good you are. As soon as she finished speaking, Meng Yao's fingertips suddenly plucked the strings of the zither. Clang! It was just a single note, but it emitted a biting cold murderous intent. In an instant, the murderous intent on the battlefield spread, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. Meng Yao's left hand pressed the strings and picked up the notes. She pushed them out, picked them up, and played them simultaneously. She moaned, kicked, bumped, and called. Her right hand plucked the strings, and her finger movements were varied and complicated. She pushed, held, wiped, picked, hooked, plucked, brushed, clang. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the zither was endless, and it became more and more hurried. The immortals and monks under the divine tree of Jianmu felt as if they were on a battlefield, ambushed by thousands of soldiers and horses. Murderous intent was hidden in all directions. Meng Yao's zither music contained a strong murderous intent. If the cultivators closed their eyes, they seemed to be able to feel that there were thousands of soldiers and horses on Meng Yao's zither, charging at them with an earth-shattering aura. The cultivators who were in it felt as if they were about to be trampled by the invisible thousands of soldiers and horses, and cut into pieces by countless sharp blades. Even the bystanders felt it so strongly. Chiu Siluo, who was targeted by Meng Yao, suffered an even greater and more intense impact. Meng Yao's zither music could be elegant and pleasant, but of course it could also kill. Chapter 2608. Just as the crowd's emotions were gradually stirred up by Meng Yao's zither music, a melodious zither music sounded. The zither deity and zither demon finally faced off.
Qiu Si Luo's zither music was completely different from Meng Yao's. Meng Yao's zither music was murderous and aggressive. There was no sharpness in Qiu Si Luo's zither music, but it contained a trace of recollection, a piece of memory. It was like the warm winter sun, sprinkling in the hearts of the crowd. In terms of zither skills, Meng Yao was indeed better than Qiu Si Luo. But because Meng Yao paid too much attention to the rigor and exquisiteness of zither skills, she was tainted with a trace of craftsmanship, and less devout in zither Dao. Meng Yao's zither was too utilitarian. She practiced zither for fame, for status, and to make connections. And Qiu Si Luo practiced zither only because she liked it. She used the zither to carry the Dao, and move people with her music. Meng Yao's song was just an ice-cold melody, and Qiu Si Luo's zither music contained her feelings. In the end, what really touched people's hearts was the touch of deep emotion in the faint zither music. Under the divine tree Jianmu, the immortals and monks were unconsciously immersed in Qiu Si Luo's zither music, forgetting where they were for a moment. They unconsciously recalled the past with different expressions. Images flashed through Mo Qing's mind. In Avicii, she was wronged, bullied, and humiliated, but a man in a purple robe with a silver mask suddenly appeared and said something to her. There are people in the world who slander you, bully you, humiliate you, laugh at you, belittle you, despise you and hate you. You don't have to endure or defend yourself, just kill them. Recalling this, a faint smile appeared on Mo Qing's face. Yunju recalled that in Avicii, there was a handsome scholar who carried her on his back to escape. There were only a few layers of clothes between the two of them, so it was inevitable that there would be some friction as they ran. Yunju lowered her head slightly, and a blush flashed across her cheeks. Shi Wunyan's expression was complicated, and his face was uncertain. The Moonlight Sword Immortal seemed to have recalled something, and her expression was gloomy, and her arms trembled slightly. The perfected immortals and arhats were touched by Qiu Si Luo's zither music, and each fell into reminiscence, recalling the most unforgettable scenes in their lives. Some were in tears, some were overjoyed. Some were dejected, while others were pleased with their success. Some were dejected while others were excited, sad or happy, sad or resentful, angry or indignant. The 7 emotions and 6 desires were all present. Meng Yao's zither was still playing, but everyone seemed to be unable to hear it. Even Meng Yao herself had sunk into some kind of memory. Her eyes were red and her expression was sorrowful. A bean-sized teardrop fell from the corner of her eye. Patter! This teardrop fell on the sound of her guqin. This voice seemed weak, but it caused Meng Yao to be startled. She couldn't control the strength in her fingers. With a bang, one of the zither strings broke. Her fingertips were cut, and a trace of blood seeped out. This voice also caused the immortals and monks to wake up. Only then did everyone realize what had happened. They were completely immersed in Qiu Si's zither song when they were unprepared, and they were infected by the emotions of the zither song. Even his opponent Meng Yao was not spared. The outcome of this zither competition had been decided. I actually lost, Meng Yao muttered in disbelief. For a time, she was unable to accept the reality before her. Today's defeat was too big a blow to her. This meant that from now on, she was not worthy of the title of Zither Fairy. All the glory she had once received would vanish. As a peak true immortal, she had lost to a level 5 heaven immortal. This news would spread throughout the heaven realm in a few days. At that time, she would be the laughingstock of the 9 heavens immortal realm. The martial path True Body's move was to defeat Meng Yao in the domain she was most proficient in. This was a devastating blow to Meng Yao's Taoist heart. This was more powerful than directly suppressing her in a head-on battle. Meng Yao sat on the ground in a daze. Her guqin, which had a broken string, fell beside her. Her eyes were blank. Wu Dao's original body jumped down from Sky Wolf's back. Then, he patted Sky Wolf, indicating that he should carry Qiu Si Luo back to the demon realm. Sky Wolf had a premonition that Wu Dao's original body was about to make a big move. He was afraid that it would implicate him, so he could not wait to leave as soon as possible. He quickly ran to Qiu Si Luo's side. Junyu looked at Wu Dao's original body, with a strong fighting spirit in her eyes. She took off the star chessboard behind her and said in a deep voice, Araki Takashi from the demon realm, I respect your courage. You dared to cross the abyss of immortals and Arhat lists, in the face of the two domains geniuses. Now, I'll also give you a chance to have a fair fight with me. The true immortal lists and Arhat lists in the two domains. Wu Dao's original body raised his head slightly, and looked at the two lists hanging high above the divine tree of divine wood. He said lightly, "Your two lists are just a joke in my eyes." Before his voice died away, Wu Dao's original body did not do anything. He just raised his hand slightly. Rip! With an ear-piercing sound, the true immortal lists and Arhat lists on the divine tree of divine wood were torn in half by a powerful external force. The two lists slowly floated down, and the light emitted by the true immortal names on them gradually dimmed. The crowd was furious. This move could no longer be considered a provocation. It was simply a slap to their faces. He had torn the true immortal lists and Arhat lists in front of them. The two lists were just a joke in the eyes of Araki Takashi? This sentence clearly showed that he did not take the geniuses of the two domains seriously. The demon is too arrogant. He's too arrogant. Araki Takashi, the blood feud of thousands of true immortals in the Jade Heaven celestial realm, must be repaid with blood. The immortals and monks felt their blood boil. Even if they were afraid of Araki Takashi's fierce reputation, they could not care less at this time. Many of them stood up. This time, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was very smart, and did not say a word. He vaguely had a premonition. This Araki Takashi of the demon domain had not looked at him from the beginning to the end. However, he still felt a sense of trepidation, as if a disaster would befall him at any time. If not for his reputation, he would have left this place immediately. Wu Dao's true body did not find an excuse to target the Moonlight Sword Immortal, so he was not in a hurry. He did not come today just for Mengyao and the Moonlight Sword Immortal. Araki Takashi. At this moment, Shi Wunyan spoke and asked slowly, "As far as I know, the hell-suppressing cauldron is in your hands now? So what if it is?" Wu Dao's true body did not even look at Shi Wunyan and asked back. Shi Wunyan took out a Buddhist staff from his storage bag and said in a deep voice, "The hell-suppressing cauldron is a sacred item of the Buddhist sects and cannot be spread. If you're unwilling to return the hell-suppressing cauldron, don't blame the monks of the Buddhist sects for working together to suppress you." That's right. Yin Mubai also said loudly, "When dealing with a demon from the demon domain, there is no need to pay attention to a one-on-one battle. Everyone attack together. Killing this demon is the right way." Wu Dao's true body was expressionless. The immortals and monks on the opposite side wanted to attack him, but they had to find a high-sounding reason. This was perfect. He did not need any reason to deal with the Moonlight Sword Immortal. He could just take advantage of the chaos to kill her. Chapter 2609. Under Shi Wunyan's instigation, the immortals and monks under the divine tree were all filled with killing intent. They stared at Wu Dao's original body, and were ready to attack at any time. With a supreme true immortal and a supreme Arhat in front of them, what were they afraid of? Moreover, there was a group of immortal king experts behind them. If anything happened, the immortal king and heavenly king behind them would definitely not sit idly by. "Demon, why aren't you surrendering?" Shi Wunyan shouted loudly. At the same time, the staff in his hand slammed heavily on the ground, causing a loud bang. This sound resonated with the Buddhist sound domain secret technique that he had released, forming a powerful sound domain attack that shook people's hearts. This was the best sound domain technique of the Buddhist sect. Severe warning. If one's cultivation was not good, if they were not prepared, their Tao heart might collapse on the spot. The deeper one's understanding of Buddhism, the greater the power of this sound domain technique. In the previous ranking battle of the Arhat list, Shi Wunyan had used severe warning to directly subdue his opponent, who was also a peak true immortal. Of course, Shi Wunyan had never thought that with this severe warning, he would be able to subdue Araki Takashi. However, as long as Araki Takashi revealed a slight flaw, it would be enough. He would take the opportunity to use his most powerful technique and attack Araki Takashi. At that time, the other cultivators would attack together. Each of them would use a secret technique and spirit treasure.
No matter how strong Araki Takashi was, he would not be able to withstand it. However, to Sherwunyan's disappointment, Araki Takashi did not seem to have any reaction to his severe warning. The silver mask was cold, and the eyes under the mask were as deep as the ocean, and as mysterious as the starry sky. "You're too noisy." Wu Dao's original body glanced at Sherwunyan and said indifferently. No matter how strong Sherwunyan was, he was only a supreme arhat. A Dao technique of this level had no effect on the perfected true Wu Dao body at all. Before he finished speaking, Wu Dao's original body suddenly attacked. He didn't make any extra movements. He just took a step forward and threw a punch in Sherwunyan's direction. This fist was like the eruption of a volcano, raging waves crashing onto the shore. In an instant, it was as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. The scene of the destruction of the heavens and the earth appeared. Hiss! Sherwunyan was shocked. He finally understood why Qin Su, in the face of Araki Takashi's casual punch, was willing to abandon his body and turn around to escape. This punch made him feel suffocated. It shouldn't exist in this world. How could such power be achieved by a mere human? In the blink of an eye, countless thoughts flashed through Sherwunyan's mind. Being enveloped by this punch, he even wanted to turn around and run. But soon he made a decision. He couldn't escape. Qin Su turned and fled. With the Supreme Purity Jade Book and the restriction power left behind by the Sovereign Emperor, he was able to preserve his life. His physical body was abandoned and completely crippled. If he made the same choice, he might not even be able to keep his life. Only by using all of his trump cards without holding back, and choosing to resist Araki Takashi's punch, and waiting for the other cultivators to arrive would he be able to find a chance to survive. It was not that Sherwunyan did not have a powerful trump card. In the fight for the Arhat ranking, no one could force him to use his full strength, and that trump card of his. At that moment, he did not have any other choice. Supreme Divine Power, Dragon Elephant of Buddhas. Sherwunyan placed his palms together and chanted Sanskrit. His entire being turned solemn and inviolable. Suddenly, one after another, majestic and sacred Buddhas appeared around him. Standing tall, they were corporeal and shone with a boundless golden light, exuding a massive might. The kasaya, facial features and even the fine wrinkles on their faces, eyebrows and eyes of every single Buddha were incomparably clear, as though a true Buddha had descended to the world. The Buddhas chanted Sanskrit sutras that reverberated through the world. At the same time, divine dragons appeared one after another beside the Buddhas. Divine elephants with massive bodies appeared beside the Buddhas. The divine dragons roared, and the divine elephants trumpeted. The Buddhist divine power, Dragon Elephant of Buddhas. This is. On the peak of Jinmu Mountain, Qinglian's true body was shocked when he saw that, and his eyes shone brightly. Back in Tianhuang mainland, he was fortunate enough to witness that divine power from Monk Daming during the final battle against the blood demon Dao Lord. However, in Tianhuang mainland, Dragon Elephant of Buddhas was considered a supreme divine power. Furthermore, only those with extremely high attainments in Buddhism and a deep understanding of it could comprehend that supreme divine power. Monk Daming's Dragon Elephant of Buddhas was extremely similar to Sherwunyan's. However, there were some differences as well. Qinglian's true body was at the peak of Jinmu Mountain and could not see it clearly due to the distance. His heart skipped a beat, and he secretly released the spirit potency art to establish a connection with Wu Dao's true body. Through the eyes of Wu Dao's true body, he observed the divine power, as though he was personally present and deduced at the same time. Because of that, Wu Dao's true body paused for a moment and did not continue hammering down. Otherwise, if Wu Dao's true body punched down, Dragon Elephant of Buddhas and supreme divine powers would have been reduced to ashes along with Sherwunyan. When this scene fell into the eyes of the bystanders, they understood it in a different way. To the other cultivators, Araki Takashi's explosive punch was equivalent to Sherwunyan's. Thereafter, Sherwunyan released a supreme divine power to take it head-on. Both sides were in a stalemate and were evenly matched. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. The cultivators and monks were invigorated, and their fear towards Araki Takashi lessened. At the very least, The scene before them proved that Araki Takashi was not that strong and invincible. Moonlight Sword Immortal heaved a sigh of relief. I knew it. Araki Takashi is a supreme true demon, while fellow Taoist Sherwunian is a supreme Arhat. There's not much difference between them. Everyone else had the same thought. Only Chess Immortal Junyu frowned secretly with a hint of confusion in her eyes. As the only perfected immortal present who possessed supreme divine powers, her perception was more accurate than others. Although Sherwunian's dragon elephant of Buddhas seemed powerful and terrifying, it should not have reached the level of a true supreme divine power yet. The dragon elephant of Buddhas was merely at the threshold of a supreme divine power. Similar to Yun Ting's immortal slaying sword, it was a quasi-supreme divine power. How could a quasi-supreme divine power be in a stalemate with Araki Takashi? Junyu felt that the scene before her was a little strange. As a supreme perfected immortal, she naturally could not be bothered to join forces with others, and merely watched coldly from the sidelines with a frown. I see. On the battlefield, the two true bodies that were connected through the spirit potency art deduced at the same time, and quickly analyzed the secret of Sherwunian's dragon elephant of Buddhas. Indeed, the dragon elephant of Buddhas had the possibility of becoming a supreme divine power. However, in order to raise this divine power to the level of a supreme divine power, one would not only have to have a deep understanding of Buddhism, one would also have to reach an extremely high level in terms of the divine powers and secret skills of the dragons and elephants. The Tao of the Buddhist sects, the Tao of the dragons, and the Tao of the elephants were fused together to form the dragon elephant of Buddhas. That was a true supreme divine power. Chapter 2610. In Tianhuang mainland, almost all the Buddhas, divine dragons and divine elephants condensed by Monk Daming's Buddha dragon elephant were phantoms. However, the divine power of Sherwunian before him had already condensed into a corporeal form, as though his true body had descended. It was the same for the divine dragons, circling around the Buddhas and riding the clouds. They were no different from true dragons. Although the divine elephants beside the Buddhas looked lifelike, they were not corporeal, and were merely phantoms that lacked weight and agility. Su Zimo was certain that Sherwunian had extremely deep attainments in the Tao techniques of the Buddhist monasteries and dragons, and already had a deep understanding of them. However, he did not have a deep understanding of the elephant race's Tao techniques, and did not meet the requirements. Therefore, his Tao of all Buddhas and dragon elephants had only touched the threshold of a supreme divine ability. It was not a true supreme divine ability. Su Zimo was delighted after deducing the secret of the Buddha dragon elephant. Qinglian's true body cultivated the forbidden secret of the Buddhist monasteries, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. There was definitely no problem for her in terms of Buddhist Tao techniques. However, the essence spirit of Qinglian's true body was fused with the dragon phoenix essence spirit to begin with, and controlled many divine powers and secret skills of dragons. In terms of comprehension of dragons' Tao techniques, he had even surpassed many true dragons. He had also dabbled in the elephant race's Tao techniques. His innate divine power, the Six Tusks divine power, came from the elephant race. Furthermore, after killing Fang Xian in the emperor's tomb, he obtained a top-tier cultivation technique, the divine elephant breath devouring technique, which contained many elephant race Dao techniques. Back then, Feng Xian relied on that cultivation technique to attract the 49 heavenly tribulations and ascend. He even cultivated the divine elephant bloodline and was extremely strong. After Qingyuan's true body obtained that cultivation technique, she cultivated it for many years and comprehended it. In other words, the foundation of his cultivation of the Buddha dragon elephant surpassed even Shi Wunyan, and there was a higher chance that he could cultivate the Buddha dragon elephant into a supreme divine power. In the eyes of others, Shi Wunyan and Araki Takeshi were in a stalemate. However, nobody expected that in those few breaths, Su Zimo would attempt to deduce the Buddha dragon elephant's Dao techniques in battle. On the battlefield, Shi Wunyan looked at Wu Dao's clear and bright eyes under the silver mask, and he suddenly felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. He didn't think too much about it and sneered. The supreme true demon is only SO. Isn't he still restrained by my supreme divine ability? Your Buddhas and dragon elephants have yet to reach the level of a supreme divine ability. Wu Dao's main body said indifferently. So what? Shi Wunyan said. A quasi-supreme ability is enough to stop you. You're too naive. A trace of mockery flashed through the eyes of Wu Dao's main body. Seeing this gaze, Shi Wunyan's heart suddenly felt uneasy. Everyone, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and join forces to kill this demon. With no time to think, Shi Wunyan growled. At this moment, the voice of Wu Dao's true body suddenly sounded in his mind. Shi Wunyan, if you want to spar with me in Dharma, do it in your next life. You are. Shi Wunyan seemed to have thought of something. His pupils suddenly shrank, and his mind was greatly shocked. He had only said that he wanted to spar with one person. The top of the heaven roll of the divine firmament immortal domain, Su Zimo. In an instant, he seemed to have understood many things. His eyes were filled with horror and fear as he looked at Wu Dao's main body. He opened his mouth wide as if he wanted to shout and say something. Unfortunately, he had no chance. Su Zimo had deduced the secret of the Buddhas and dragon elephants. Shi Wunyan was no longer of any use to him. Wu Dao's main body suddenly exerted strength. The originally silent fist once again burst out with shocking divine power, and smashed Shi Wunyan's Buddhas and dragon elephants into pieces. Poof! Wu Dao's main body smashed Shi Wunyan's head with a punch. A mist of blood spread, and Shi Wunyan's primordial spirit was destroyed on the spot. The supreme Arhat Shi Wunyan was dead. At this time, the immortals and monks under the divine tree of divine tree had already used their divine powers and spiritual treasures and sharp blades, attacking Wu Dao's main body from all directions. Except for Yunju, Mo Qing and Lin Lei, almost all the perfected immortal Arhats had unleashed their most powerful attacks. The dustless sword swayed with sword shadows, revealing its sharpness. It was filled with pure sword intent, as if it was going to cleanse all the dust in the world. Shi Gu held a huge dagger axe with both hands and rushed towards Su Zimo. Yin Mubai took out a ninth tribulation pure yang spiritual treasure, a silver-white immortal umbrella with both offensive and defensive capabilities suddenly opened. The sharp edge of the immortal umbrella spun rapidly and slashed towards Wu Dao's main body. The experts on the Arhat list also took out their respective spiritual dharma treasures and unleashed their divine powers and secret techniques, attacking fiercely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Many Arhats chanted Buddhist Sanskrit at the same time, forming a vast sound domain secret technique. They interacted and formed a resonance. The momentum became greater and greater, surging towards Wu Dao's main body. Scram! Wu Dao's main body suddenly opened his mouth and let out an earth-shattering roar in the direction of the Arhats. In an instant, billions of living beings seemed to appear behind Wu Dao's main body. They roared at the immortals and monks present at the same time. It was deafening. Bang! 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 Dozens of cultivators below the divine tree builder could not withstand the impact and were shattered into pieces by a single roar from the martial Dao true body. Their limbs flew everywhere. Some cultivators were killed on the spot, their essence spirits destroyed. One had to know that the cultivators under the divine tree were the top 200 geniuses of the two regions. They were the top perfected immortals. Even so, they could not withstand the impact of the sound domain.
Aurora had already defeated the attacks of the cultivators and monks. Of course, under the intentional control of Wu Dao's main body, Yunju, Mo Qing, and Lin Lei were almost unaffected. Before the attacks of the cultivators landed on Wu Dao's main body, they were on the verge of collapsing. When the dustless sword neared, the sword technique was already faltering, and its power was depleted. Wu Dao's main body grabbed the dustless sword and exerted strength in his palm. Snap! There was a crisp sound. The dustless sword was shattered into pieces by the palm of Wu Dao's main body and scattered on the ground. Zhuo Wuqian's expression changed in shock. The dustless sword in his hands was a grade 9 pure yang spirit treasure. However, it was broken by Araki Takashi's physical body. What sort of power was that? After breaking the sword, Wu Dao's main body punched in reverse. Zhuo Wuqian's eyes widened as he watched the punch fly over. However, he could not dodge it no matter what. Bang! Zhuo Wuqian was turned into a blood mist by the punch of Wu Dao's main body. Before he could land on the ground, he was burned to ashes by the heat contained in the fist of Wu Dao's main body, and his essence spirit was destroyed. At that moment, the group of arhats rushed forward as well. Without even looking, Wu Dao's main body punched in reverse. Poof! This punch even caused the void to collapse. 5 arhats were trapped and could not break free. They were enveloped by the fist of Wu Dao's main body. Poof! 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 The 5 arhats were all killed by a single punch of Wu Dao's main body. Under the mysterious divine tree, Wu Dao's main body went on a killing spree. The perfected immortal ranking, arhat ranking, paragons and monster incarnates were all turned into dead souls under his fist. No one could stop him. Chapter 26:11. The change in the situation was too sudden. Just a moment ago, Araki Takashi and Shi Wunyan were evenly matched. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, Shi Wunyan would be killed by Araki Takashi with a single punch? Shi Wunyan was defeated too quickly and too suddenly. The immortal kings on the peak of Jinmu Mountain could not react for a moment. The heavenly kings of the Pure Lands were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They were both shocked and furious. Shi Wunyan came from Mount Meru of the Pure Lands. He was the #1 person in this batch of Buddhist sects, and had just been conferred the title of Supreme Arhat. Who would have thought that on the second day after Shi Wunyan obtained the title of Supreme Arhat, he would be killed by Araki Takashi on the spot? Shi Wunyan would probably become the fastest Supreme Arhat to fall since ancient times. By the time the heavenly kings came back to their senses, the battle had already begun. Wu Dao's true body attacked continuously. None of the perfected immortal prodigies of the 2 regions were a match for him. Blood flowed like a river under the divine tree of Jinmu. One had to know that the 200 perfected immortals and arhats, who could cultivate under the divine tree of Jinmu, could be considered the future, foundation, and hope of the two regions. They were the most outstanding successors of the various sects and factions. Seeing these prodigies die one after another, the immortal kings and heavenly kings of the various sects and factions could no longer sit still. No matter what, they had to save their successors first. If they allowed Araki Takashi to continue like this, not many of the 200 perfected immortals would survive. The peerless immortal kings of the two regions could still remain calm. It was enough for an ordinary immortal king to step in. If they needed a peerless immortal king to deal with a supreme true demon, it would be too much of a fuss. Wu Dao's true body was about to take advantage of the chaos to kill the Moonlight Sword immortal in the crowd. But 3 immortal kings and 4 heavenly kings descended and blocked his path. 7 Grotto Heaven Realm experts arrived on the battlefield and emitted a powerful divine sense pressure, directly locking onto Wu Dao's true body. Demon, stop what you're doing. The sea of blood is boundless. Turn back and be saved. Lay down your butcher's knife and become a Buddha on the spot. A Buddhist heavenly king chanted in Sanskrit. At the same time, he raised his wooden mallet and slammed it heavily on the wooden fish in his hand, producing a heart-stirring sound. The other 2 immortal kings also stretched out their palms, pressing down on Wu Dao's true body. In the face of the attacks of the Grotto Heaven Realm powerhouses, Wu Dao's original body actually advanced instead of retreating. With a cold snort, he raised 2 fists and collided with the palms of the 2 celestial kings. Seeing this, the cultivators felt a sense of absurdity in their hearts. It was unknown if this Araki Takashi from the Devil Domain was a madman, or if his mind was muddled. He actually dared to go head-on against an immortal king with his bare hands. Wasn't this courting death? Bang! Bang! The speed at which the 2 celestial kings attacked was very fast, but their speed of retreat was even faster. In the blink of an eye, the 2 celestial kings were sent flying by Wu Dao's original body with 2 punches. The 2 celestial kings' faces were filled with shock. They only felt that the moment they collided with Wu Dao's original body, they felt a destructive divine power crazily surging into their bodies. The 2 of them could not withstand it at all. Ka. A sharp pain came from the arms of the 2 celestial kings, as the sound of bones cracking rang out. Under countless gazes, the flesh and blood on the arms of the 2 celestial kings were torn apart. Their bones broke into pieces and a cloud of blood mist burst out. Their internal organs were also shaken by the violent impact. They coughed out large mouthfuls of blood, and their expressions were dispirited. Hiss! The crowd sucked in a breath of cold air, and turned pale with fright. Celestial kings condensed their grotto heavens. When they cultivated, they used their grotto heavens to nourish their bodies and bloodlines. Their physiques were powerful, and their strength was astonishing, far surpassing that of the true One Realm. And now, the 2 celestial kings were actually severely injured by 2 punches from a true demon in close combat. What kind of power was this? Just what level had this Araki Takashi reached? The remaining celestial king, and the 4 heavenly kings, were also shocked by the scene just now. The 5 Grotto Heaven Realm experts tacitly activated their small grotto heavens without hesitation. Boom! 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 The 5 Grotto Heaven Realm experts released their respective small grotto heavens. They did not dare to hold back at all, as they pushed their immortal king battle prowess to the peak. Araki Takashi of the Demon Realm was troublesome and terrifying. It had already exceeded their imagination. They did not want to suffer a huge setback at the hands of Araki Takashi in front of the crowd. Wu Dao's original body looked at the Celestial King and the 4 heavenly kings with a cold gaze. His entire body was filled with a chilling aura that made one's heart palpitate. Immediately after, Wu Dao's original body circulated his chi and blood. An earth-shattering sound of a tsunami came from his body as his aura skyrocketed. 2 balls of purple flames ignited in his eyes. They were deep and bright, and could not be looked at directly. In the next moment, Wu Dao's original body faced the 5 celestial kings. He took another step forward and punched out. This punch enveloped the celestial king and the 4 heavenly kings. It exploded like fire and surged like the sea. This punch looked simple, but it condensed all of Wu Dao's Dao techniques and will. Unyielding resistance. Straight to the heart, quick to repay kindness and hatred. This was a simple punch without any unnecessary movements. The great Tao was simple. His original body's fist was Wu Dao. All of the Tao techniques and power, in the perfected true Wu Dao's body, were condensed into this punch. Boom! The fist of Wu Dao's original body collided with the 5 grotto heavens opposite him. The surrounding void trembled. Then the eyes of the celestial king and the 4 heavenly kings gradually changed. The 5 of them looked at Wu Dao's original body as if they had seen a god. They were shocked and afraid. Rumble! Under everyone's gaze, the grotto heavens that the 5 of them had just propped up were destroyed by Wu Dao's original body with a single punch. They collapsed and turned into nothingness. All the cultivators widened their eyes in shock and disbelief. This scene had already exceeded the understanding of the cultivators. The power of the supreme true demon could already surpass the true self realm and the grotto heaven realm to reach such a terrifying level. Even the peerless celestial kings on the peak of Jianmu Mountain subconsciously stood up, their hearts trembling. With their eyesight, they could naturally tell that Araki Takashi's punch just now did not involve the power of the grotto heavens at all. In other words, Araki Takashi of the demon domain had yet to step into the grotto heaven realm. That punch was purely based on the power of his physical body and bloodline. Even so, it was already so terrifying. Although the celestial king and the 4 heavenly kings were only at the initial stage of the grotto heaven realm and had only condensed a small grotto heaven. A small grotto heaven was still a grotto heaven. How could the most powerful attack of an immortal king be destroyed by a single punch? Even if it was them, it would be difficult for them to do so without releasing their large grotto heavens. The 5 small grotto heavens collapsed. The celestial king and the 4 heavenly kings were shocked. They did not dare to block in front of Wu Dao's original body and hurriedly retreated to avoid the attack. The 7 grotto heaven realm experts had just rushed forward when they were scattered by Wu Dao's original body with a few punches. Once the 7 celestial kings retreated, the perfected immortal elites under the divine tree were once again exposed to Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body's gaze turned and landed on the Moonlight Sword Immortal. In an instant, the Moonlight Sword Immortal felt all the hair on her body stand on end and her scalp go numb. She seemed to have lost control of her body. She had been targeted. Chapter 26:12. The Moonlight Sword Immortal felt very innocent. Under the instigation of Shi Wunyan, Zhuo Wuchen, and the others, more than half of the cultivators under the divine tree attacked Wu Dao's real body. There were only a few cultivators who did not make a move, and he was one of them. Yun Zhu and Mo Qing knew Wu Dao's real body, so they naturally did not make a move. As a supreme perfected immortal, Junyu was too embarrassed to join forces with others, so she did not make a move. The reason why the Moonlight Sword Immortal did not make a move was simple. This was because he had a sudden feeling that a great disaster was about to befall him. Moreover, he did not know why, but he had a feeling that Araki Takashi from the demon domain wanted to make an example out of him. The Moonlight Sword Immortal did not make a move because he was afraid that he would give Araki Takashi a reason to attack. However, he did not expect that although he had been honest and did not lay a finger on Araki Takashi and had no enmity with Araki Takashi, he was still targeted in the end. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was puzzled and indignant. Just now, Araki Takashi's demonic power was so strong that even a Grotto Heaven Realm Immortal King was defeated. What was he, who was 9th on the perfected immortal leaderboard? Araki Takashi could probably crush him to death with just a finger. The Moonlight Sword Immortal did not have the heart to resist and turned to flee without thinking. At the same time, he shouted for help in the direction of the Divine Tree Mountain. Trying to escape? Wu Dao's real body sneered and sped toward the Moonlight Sword Immortal at an extremely fast speed. No one dared to stop him wherever he passed. At this moment, a figure flashed in front of him, as if carrying the vast starry sky, mysterious and unfathomable. The supreme perfected immortal Junyu had appeared. She was unwilling to join forces with others to deal with Wu Dao's real body. She was the only one who dared to stand out and block the path of Wu Dao's real body. Seeing this scene,
Mo Qing was shocked and worried about Junyu's safety. After all, in her opinion, Araki Takashi did things without any scruples, and was from the demon domain. He was decisive in killing. Even an immortal king would be defeated by him, let alone Junyu. Don't worry. At that moment, Yinju's voice rang in Mo Qing's mind. She said with certainty, Junyu will be fine. Yinju knew the identity of Wu Dao's original body. Therefore, she was certain that Wu Dao's original body would never harm Junyu. Seeing Junyu blocking his path, Wu Dao's footsteps paused slightly. He said indifferently, "You are not my opponent." Before his voice fell, Wu Dao's main body had already attacked. Different from the previous attacks, this time, Wu Dao's original body did not unleash any heaven-destroying and earth-extinguishing punch. He only pressed two fingers together, forming the shape of a sword finger, and pierced towards Junyu's forehead. Before the sword finger arrived, Junyu felt the space between her eyebrows swell slightly, and a sharp pain came from it. Very strong indeed, Junyu thought to herself. Facing Araki Takashi, she didn't dare to hold back. She formed a seal with both hands and gently pointed in the direction of Wu Dao's original body, shouting in a low voice, "Space-time imprisonment." Junyu didn't hold back and released this supreme divine ability. A powerful and mysterious force instantly descended. Everything in this space couldn't move, nor could they feel the passage of time. The air around Wu Dao's original body seemed to have quietened down in an instant. But soon, the perfected real body of Wu Dao bloomed with a purple halo, flickering with countless mysterious runes. Wu Dao's original body instantly broke free from the space-time imprisonment. To be precise, this couldn't be considered breaking free. This supreme divine ability almost didn't have any effect on Wu Dao's original body. The entire situation was like a game of chess. Junyu's move was wrong, and she was at a disadvantage. Wu Dao's original body had already arrived in front of Junyu. His sword finger was hanging between her eyebrows, ready to swallow and spit out sword chi at any time, bursting with killing intent. Junyu's body moved, and took a step back diagonally. Her movement technique was strange and incomparably mysterious. Immortal King Linglong's 9 Palace Subtle Steps. The 9 Palace's subtle steps wasn't known for its speed, but in battle, it could often be used to find a way out of death. Junyu released the 9 Palace's subtle steps, planning to temporarily pull away from Wu Dao's original body before making plans. But at the same time that Junyu dodged diagonally behind, Wu Dao's original body moved, as if breaking through layers of the void, and actually followed. The two of them were practically one in front and one behind. The distance between them didn't pull apart at all. Wu Dao's original body's sword finger was still hanging between Junyu's eyebrows. Junyu's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly released the 9 Palace's subtle steps again, wanting to shake off Wu Dao's original body's pursuit. But Wu Dao's original body followed suit like a shadow. How is this possible? Junyu was alarmed. Araki Takashi could actually break the 9 Palace's subtle steps, and even follow her. "I've said before you're not my match," Wu Dao's original body emphasized again. With a move, he chased in the direction of the Moonlight Sword Immortal. "Don't go, the outcome hasn't been decided yet." Junyu took a step forward, wanting to call out to Wu Dao's original body. But suddenly, she felt a trace of warmth gradually flowing down from between her eyebrows. Junyu touched it subconsciously. Her hand was covered in blood. Her glabella had been pierced through. In other words, if Araki Takashi of the Fiend region had moved his sword finger an inch forward, sword chi would have pierced through her essence spirit. But Araki Takashi had just started a massacre. Why didn't he kill me? Junyu could vaguely sense that Araki Takashi's treatment of her was somewhat different. At the very least, he didn't unleash an overly ferocious and terrifying attack. Instead, he left some leeway. A sense of helplessness suddenly rose in Junyu's heart. The difference between the two of them was too great. In front of Araki Takashi of the Fiend region, even her fighting spirit and fighting spirit were severely suppressed. She couldn't even raise her head. Although there was a slight delay, Wu Dao's original body was extremely fast. Just as the Moonlight Sword Immortal was about to reach the Jianmu mountain range, he caught up with her. Whoosh! Wu Dao's original body didn't say anything. He raised his hand and punched out. All of a sudden, a crack appeared in the void beside the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and a white-haired elder flashed out. He glared at Wu Dao's original body and shouted, "Demon, how dare you hurt my academy's disciple?" The Grand Elder of Qingquan Academy had arrived. Although the Grand Elder of Qingquan Academy was old, he was still at the Grotto Heaven realm after all. He was a peerless immortal king. Seeing that ordinary immortal kings couldn't stop Wu Dao's original body at all, the Grand Elder of Qingquan Academy couldn't sit still, and had to step forward personally. No matter what, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was the #1 true disciple of Qingquan Academy. He couldn't afford to lose her. The Grand Elder of Qingquan Academy stretched out his slightly skinny hand and clenched it into a fist. He activated his bloodline and collided with the fist of Wu Dao's original body. Bang! The two fists collided, and the sound of defeat could be heard. Neither of them retreated half a step. Wu Dao's original body looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal, who was frantically fleeing toward the peak of the Jinmu Mountain, and a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. He activated his essence spirit and activated his divine ability, pointing at the Moonlight Sword Immortal from afar. Eternal damnation! A supreme divine ability erupted. Wu Dao's original body rarely used divine abilities or secret techniques in battle. It wasn't that he didn't know how to use them. It was just that most of the time, he didn't need to use any divine abilities or secret techniques. His divine abilities and secret techniques had already been integrated into the body of the real Wu Dao. At this moment, Wu Dao's original body had just used a divine ability and directly released a supreme divine ability, causing a series of exclamations. The Moonlight Sword Immortal turned back and looked. She was so scared that her face turned pale, and despair filled her heart. With her strength, she couldn't withstand a supreme divine ability at all. Moreover, this eternal damnation was even more terrifying than space-time imprisonment in terms of killing power. The Grand Elder of Qingquan Academy was held back by Wu Dao's original body and couldn't get away for a moment. He could only wave his sleeves and throw out a powerful secret technique, which crashed toward eternal damnation. Chapter 26:13. Eternal damnation originated from the last tribulation of the 99 heavenly tribulations. The myriad heavenly tribulations transformed into countless runes that emitted a destructive aura. They descended densely, covering the sky and the sun. Tribulation of formation, tribulation of stopping, tribulation of destruction, tribulation of void, tribulation of fire, tribulation of water, tribulation of wind, tribulation of weapons. Every tribulation evolved into countless smaller tribulations. The 3 calamities, 9 disasters, and 10 evil tribulations were like a tide of heavenly tribulations, surging toward the Moonlight Sword Immortal to devour him. In an instant, an apocalyptic scene appeared above the Moonlight Sword Immortal's head. Amidst the tide of heavenly tribulations, the Moonlight Sword Immortal trembled slightly, appearing extremely small and insignificant. The true essence radiance on his body had already been torn to shreds. The Moonlight Sword Immortal withstood the pressure, his eyes bloodshot. As if his life depended on it, he activated his Dao Fruit primordial spirit, condensed his true essence, and continuously released divine powers and mystic techniques. However, his divine powers and mystic techniques surged into the tide of heavenly tribulations like a stone ox entering the sea. They did not stir up any waves and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the face of supreme divine powers, all his counterattacks were insignificant. At this moment, the Academy Grand Elder's mystic technique descended. A huge hand appeared above the Moonlight Sword Immortal's head, holding back the surging tide of heavenly tribulations. Although supreme divine powers were powerful, Wu Dao's original body was limited by his cultivation realm. Eternal damnation could not harm a peerless immortal king like the Academy Grand Elder at all. However, the tide of heavenly tribulations kept surging, wanting to flow through the gaps between the fingers of the huge hand, and continue to threaten the Moonlight Sword Immortal. The Academy Grand Elder snorted coldly. The huge hand suddenly exerted force and clenched into a fist. Boom! The tide of heavenly tribulations suddenly exploded,
and
a
loud
Wu
sound
Dao's
came
original
from
body.
midair.
The
In an
huge
instant,
hand grabbed,
he appeared
and
beside
the terrifying
moonlight
power
sword
of a
immortal.
peerless immortal
The grand
king
elder of
directly
the
destroyed
academy
the power
took out
of
a few
eternal
immortal
damnation.
pills,
The
and fed
moonlight
them to
sword
the
immortal
moonlight
was
sword
right
immortal.
beside the huge
Then,
hand and eternal
he conjured
damnation.
a series of incantations,
The two powers collided
and released
and the
several
remaining
healing
power
mystic
surged,
arts on
forming
the
a
moonlight
storm
sword
that
immortal.
instantly engulfed him.
It
The
hurts.
moonlight sword immortal
After a few
screamed.
healing mystic
Although
arts,
eternal
the
damnation was
moonlight
destroyed
sword
by the
immortal's
academy
cries
grand
became
elder.
even more tragic.
There were still many
Her
damaged
entire body
heavenly
was
tribulations,
and the
damaged
injuries
runes,
on her body
and
showed
supreme
no
divine
signs of
powers
healing.
left behind.
No one knew
Such
if it
Tao
was the
was of
effect
course
of the
no
immortal
threat to
pills
immortal kings,
or the grand elder's
However,
healing
the
mystic
moonlight
arts.
sword immortal
But the
was only a
moonlight
true
sword
immortal.
immortal seemed to have
She could not
regained a brief
withstand it at
moment
all.
of consciousness.
If the first elder
She
of
looked
the
at the
academy
grand
had
elder
not
of the
chosen to
academy
clash
with
with
the pleading
damnation of
expression,
eternity,
"It's too
and had only
painful.
blocked it.
Quick,
The
kill me.
moonlight sword
Give me a
immortal
quick
would
death."
still have had a chance
The
to
moonlight
escape.
sword immortal's
The grand
voice was
elder of the
trembling
academy
slightly.
chose to
Looking
clash
at the
head-on with
moonlight
the
sword
supreme
immortal
divine
at the foot of
ability,
the mountain,
the
and
aftershock
hearing
of the
her
attack
horrifying
spread,
cries.
and the moonlight
The
sword
cultivator's
immortal
gasped
didn't
and
even have
shuddered.
time to escape.
Beyond redemption,
In the blink of an eye,
it's too scary.
Wounds appeared on
Once
the
one is
moonlight
hit
sword
by the
immortal's
supreme
body.
divine power,
Some were so
no
deep that
injuries
her
can be
bones could be
healed.
seen.
At this
And
rate,
some even
the
revealed her
moonlight
internal
sword immortal
organs.
will not be
It
able
was
to
a
hold on
ghastly
for
sight.
long.
Worst
She will
of
be
all,
tortured to
one
death
of the
by her own
moonlight
injuries.
sword immortal's arms
One
had
of
been
the
chopped
three
off
great
by
sword
a broken
immortals of
weapon
the divine
tribulation
firmament
rune.
celestial realm, ranked
Ah.
ninth on the
The
perfected
moonlight sword
immortal
leaderboard.
fell to the ground.
To think that she
Her
would
body
end up like
twitching
this today.
uncontrollably as
When
she
the
let out a
immortals
shrill
and monks
cry.
saw this scene,
Her body was
their
covered in
hearts were
blood,
filled with
and
emotions,
she was almost
and they sighed
unrecognizable.
endlessly.
Originally,
When the great elder
everyone
of
was
the
still
academy
feeling
saw the
sorry
tragic
for
state
Sherwunian,
that the
and the
moonlight
others,
sword
when they
immortal
saw
was in,
Araki Takashi
his
kill them
expression
with a single
changed.
punch. But now, compared to the moonlight sword immortal, Sherwunian and the others died without any pain. They were considered lucky. Another person sighed. If I had known this would happen, the moonlight sword immortal would not have escaped just now. She was killed by Araki Takashi with a single punch, so that she would not have to suffer such pain and torture. Although Mo Qing had been dissatisfied with the moonlight sword immortal for a long time, she could not help but shake her head and sigh when she saw him in such a miserable state. The moonlight sword immortal had once said in front of her, "If Araki Takashi dares to appear before me, I will definitely cut off his facade and shatter his legend with a single sword." This sentence seemed to have been said just yesterday. Thinking back to that scene, it seemed somewhat ironic. Perhaps even the moonlight sword immortal himself did not expect that he would really meet Araki Takashi and end up in such a state. There were many cultivators present, but apart from Yunju, probably no one else knew why Araki Takashi would look for the moonlight sword immortal. The moonlight sword immortal had targeted Suzumo many times, and even joined forces with outsiders to trap and kill him. If he killed the moonlight sword immortal directly, it would be too easy for him. Only by letting him die in pain and torture could it be considered a punishment for him. Over at the Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Lin Luo looked at the moonlight sword immortal, who was covered in blood and screaming in pain, and frowned slightly. "Mother, is there no way to resolve this Tao of eternal damnation?" Lin Luo asked. Immortal King Linglong said, "Of course there is, but it is very difficult, unless this moonlight can comprehend the mysteries of the Grotto Heaven realm on her own, and become an immortal king. Looking at his current situation, it will be difficult for him to survive, let alone try to step into the Grotto Heaven realm." Lin Luo asked again, "After all, Eternal damnation is only a supreme mystical power. Could it be that even an immortal king is unable to suppress this power? Of course, immortal King Linglong said. Any immortal king present can expel eternal damnation, as long as they use their grotto heaven. But at the same time, Moonlight will not be able to save his life. He will be crushed to death by the power of the grotto heaven. The Tao of eternal damnation had already fused into every inch of the Moonlight Sword Immortal's wounds. If his essence spirit wanted to escape, it would be attacked by the power of eternal damnation. Removing eternal damnation from his body meant that even his physical body, bloodline, and even his essence spirit would be completely suppressed and crushed. After pausing for a moment, immortal King Linglong changed the topic and said, "However, nothing is absolute. If there is an immortal king's grotto heaven that condenses endless vitality, it might be able to help him resolve eternal damnation and save his life. However, there are very few such immortal kings. At least in the heaven realm, I have never heard of an immortal king possessing such a grotto heaven." Chapter 26:14. The Grand Elder of the Academy looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal, who was in pain. He was struggling and hesitating. He slowly raised his palm, but it was suspended in midair, unable to land, killing the Moonlight Sword Immortal and giving him a quick death, so that he could avoid the pain and torture of eternal damnation. To him, this might be the best outcome. However, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was the #1 disciple of the Academy after all. The Grand Elder really couldn't do it. "Moonlight, I'll send you back to the Academy. Perhaps the Patriarch can save your life." As for the Grand Elder of the Academy wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't want to deal another blow to the Moonlight Sword Immortal. Even if the Patriarch of the Academy could save the Moonlight Sword Immortal's life, the Moonlight Sword Immortal would probably be crippled. Not to mention stepping into the Grotto Heaven realm and becoming an immortal king. The Moonlight Sword Immortal would probably be inferior to many of the true disciples in the future. Moreover, this blow would have a huge impact on the Moonlight Sword Immortal. From today onwards, the name of the Moonlight Sword Immortal would be completely destroyed in the Divine Firmament Immortal realm, and even the entire Heaven realm. The Grand Elder of the Academy sighed softly. He tore through the void with the Moonlight Sword Immortal and returned to the Qingquan Academy. Other than him, there were more than 100 ordinary immortal kings, and more than 20 peerless immortal kings watching. Araki Takashi from the Demon Realm couldn't escape at all. To the Grand Elder of the Academy, saving the Moonlight Sword Immortal was more important. On the Green Firmament Immortal Realm's side, although immortal King Linglong was still sitting far away, her upper body was slightly straightened. Her expression was solemn and rather nervous. "Su Zimo, if you want to suppress the Zither Immortal this time, you have already achieved your goal. You should leave as soon as possible." Immortal King Linglong sent a voice transmission to Qinglian's true body in the Divine Firmament Immortal Realm, secretly reminding her. "There's no hurry." Su Zimo sent a voice transmission. Immortal King Linglong frowned slightly and reminded him again. "You have to be clear that now that you have injured and forced back an ordinary immortal king, the peerless immortal kings present can no longer sit still. You just fought with the Grand Elder of the Academy. You should know that there is a huge difference in strength between an ordinary immortal king and a peerless immortal king. From what I can see, you did not gain the upper hand in your fight with the first Elder of the Academy. In fact, you might even be at a disadvantage." Su Zimo transmitted. "That is indeed the case. The strength of Wu Dao's true body is not enough to fight against a peerless immortal king. There's one more thing." Immortal King Linglong continued. "The situation here is different from the Jade Firmament Immortal Realm's Langfeng City. There are no immortal kings there. You can use the hell-suppressing cauldron to leave at any time. But at this moment, all the supreme immortal kings here can no longer sit still. If these people join forces and seal the void, even if you take out the hell-suppressing cauldron and break through the void, you won't be able to leave this place." Sealing the void was a technique used by immortal kings. Immortal King Linglong was afraid that Su Zimo did not know the pros and cons of the situation, so she reminded him. Since immortal kings could break through the void,
They naturally could join forces to seal the void, preventing other immortal kings from casually leaving. Once the 20 or so peerless immortal kings made their moves and sealed the void, even immortal King Linglong wouldn't be able to escape with Wu Dao's true body. At that time, probably no one would be able to save Wu Dao's true body. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he said, "Thank you for your reminder, Senior Linglong. If these peerless immortal kings join forces and seal the void, it would be best. I was afraid that they would have scruples and wouldn't dare to attack Wu Dao's true body." Immortal King Linglong was smart. She could vaguely tell that Su Zimo seemed to have other intentions in his words. However, she couldn't figure it out at the moment. She said helplessly, "You're so powerful. You killed 2 immortal kings, and even injured a few immortal kings. Even if they have scruples, they won't sit back and let you do whatever you want. Be careful," Immortal King Linglong reminded again. On the battlefield, Wu Dao's true body watched the Grand Elder of the Academy take the Moonlight Sword Immortal away, and didn't stop him. His heart skipped a beat as he sensed the movement behind him. His expression couldn't help but turn cold. Wu Dao's true body released his divine sense, and gathered the Dao spells that were left in the void in the distance into his palm. They turned into a dark red light. Then, he retreated rapidly and sped toward the abyss of immortals and demons. After the battle between the Zither Immortal and the Zither Demon, Sky Wolf obeyed the order of Wu Dao's true body and carried Qiu Siluo toward the demon's realm. Then, under the divine tree of Jinmu, a great battle broke out. Wu Dao's true body went on a killing spree. Out of curiosity, Sky Wolf looked back as he walked toward the abyss of immortals and demons. He slowed down a little. Just as Wu Dao's true body was fighting with the Grand Elder of the Academy, Zither Immortal Meng Yao, who was sitting on the ground in a daze, suddenly came to her senses. It was as if she had regained consciousness in an instant. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Qiu Siluo in the distance. Her eyes were filled with deep jealousy. Whoosh! Meng Yao moved and chased after Qiu Siluo. Her expression was cold and murderous. Sky Wolf was shocked when he saw Meng Yao chasing after him. He quickly ran toward the abyss of immortals and demons. But he and Qiu Siluo were only fairy immortals. In terms of running away, they were no match for Meng Yao, who was at the peak of the genuine immortal realm. Just as he was about to reach the abyss of immortals and demons, Meng Yao caught up with him. "Your Zither skills are no match for mine." Meng Yao looked at Qiu Siluo on Sky Wolf's back. Her heart was filled with endless unwillingness. She screamed, "You defeated me only because of the soul-attracting Zither. This Zither should have been my lucky chance. As long as I kill you and take back the soul-attracting Zither, I will still be the Zither Immortal and one of the 4 fairies." There was no fear on Qiu Siluo's face. She looked at Meng Yao with a trace of pity. "Do you really think that your defeat is only because of an external object?" Qiu Siluo asked softly. This sentence was like a sharp blade that stabbed into Meng Yao's chest. She trembled. Just as Qiu Siluo said, deep in her heart, she clearly knew the reason for her defeat. She blamed it all on the soul-attracting Zither. But she did not want to face it. "I don't care." Meng Yao gritted her teeth and said, "I want to take back what is mine." The things that Meng Yao was talking about were not only the soul-attracting Zither, but also all the glory and fame that she had once obtained. "Die!" Meng Yao activated her Dao fruit. Halos of light spread out behind her head. Her divine sense condensed and burst out a primordial spirit secret technique at Qiu Siluo. At this moment, a figure suddenly flashed and blocked in front of Meng Yao. Her primordial spirit secret technique collided with the silver mask on the figure's face. It seemed to ripple and then disappeared. Wu Dao's true body had arrived. "You!" When Meng Yao saw the silver mask and looked at the pair of eyes burning with purple flames behind the silver mask, her expression changed drastically. She was so scared that she could not speak. Wu Dao's true body was expressionless. He raised his hand and slapped Meng Yao. A scarlet light flashed in his palm and disappeared into Meng Yao's cheek. This was the remnant of eternal damnation. Chapter 26:15. Slap. The slap from Wu Dao's true body sent Meng Yao flying more than 100 feet away.
Meng Yao had thought that she was dead for sure. After all, she had just seen the means of Wu Dao's true body. He could even kill Shi Wunyan with one punch. The small grotto heaven formed by the immortal king was shattered. No matter how hard her head was, it could not withstand the power of Araki Takashi's palm. But after she was sent flying, she only felt her ears buzzing, and her vision was a little dazed. She calmed down a little and sat up. She was not dead. A devil like Araki Takashi actually knew how to be gentle with a woman? For a moment, Meng Yao's thoughts were in a mess. However, she soon discovered the abnormality. Many of the surrounding cultivators looked at her strangely, with a hint of fear and pity in their eyes. Some cultivators were even unwilling to look at her, and avoided her gaze. Just at this moment, Meng Yao felt a tearing pain on her face. She subconsciously touched it, and her palm was covered in blood. This kind of superficial wound had no effect on a perfected immortal. Meng Yao activated her primordial spirit Dao fruit, and circulated her bloodline, trying to heal the wound on her cheek. But soon she discovered that the wound on her face could not heal. Even if she consumed a lot of spirit pills
no matter
and
what you see
miraculous
later,
medicines,
don't attack.
there was no sign of recovery.
Cantillon could
Although
tell
the
that
bleeding
Wu Dao's
from the
true
wound
body
had temporarily
seemed to have a
stopped.
deeper meaning in his
There
words.
was a hideous and
He did not
terrifying
ask in
scar
detail.
on her cheek. He just
Bright
nodded
red
and
took
flesh
Sky
was
Wolf and
exposed,
Shosillua back
completely
to the
tearing
demon
her
realm.
originally beautiful
Patriarch
face
is
apart.
still not back.
No matter who saw such a
Gutonyo's
face,
eyes were gloomy
they would
and a
not
little
associate
worried.
it with the four
Cantillon
fairies.
pondered for
They
a
would only
moment
feel
and said,
fear.
At this
Patriarch
moment,
should have other plans.
Meng Yao finally
Let's wait
understood
and
why the
see.
surrounding
Don't act
cultivators were
rashly.
looking at her
Under
with
the
such
divine
strange
tree.
eyes.
The top
She could
200
become one of the
perfected
four
immortal
fairies because
geniuses
of
of
two
the nine
things.
heavens immortal
First,
realm.
it was her
and
superb
the pure
zither
lands
skills.
Had already
Second,
taken this
it was her
opportunity to
devastatingly
escape.
beautiful face.
There were only a
This
few
was
people
also
left,
the reason for her
among
pride.
which were the three
And now,
fairies.
Araki
Immortal
Takashi of the
Yunju,
demon realm
painting
had appeared
immortal
and
and
destroyed the
Mochin,
two things
and
that
Chess
she
Immortal
valued the
Junyu.
most.
Wu
The
Dao's
crowd
true
knew
body
that
walked
Araki
slowly
Takashi's
toward the
method
divine
was
tree.
even more
The group
terrifying
of
than
immortal
directly
kings
killing
was secretly
immortal
shocked.
Meng Yao.
They tore the
To
void
Meng
and
Yao,
blocked in front
this
of Wu
outcome
Dao's
was simply
true
worse
body.
than death.
They were on guard
In
and
reality,
nervous.
the
After
scene
being
just now
attacked
was
by the
witnessed by
Academy's
all the
chief
immortal
elders'
kings.
mystic technique.
Wu Dao's true
and then
body
being
had
absorbed
shattered
by
the
the small
moonlight
grotto
sword
heavens
immortal.
of five immortal
There was
kings
not much
with a
Dao
punch.
power left.
How far had
Even
Araki
so,
Takashi
it still left
cultivated?
a scar on
The
Meng
immortal
Yao's
kings
face
could
that
not
couldn't
see
be
the
healed.
aura of a grotto
destroyed
heaven
me.
realm on
Why?
Araki Takashi's
Why are you
body.
so cruel to me?
However,
We
the
have
power
no
he
grudge against
unleashed
each
was
other.
even stronger
Meng
than
Yao's
the
hair
ordinary
was
disheveled
disheveled
as she sat on the
On
ground.
the peak of Jinmu
She seemed
Mountain,
to have lost her
more
soul.
than 20 peerless
This was a
immortal
huge blow
kings
to
looked
her.
at each other
Wu Dao's
and
true
slowly
body
stood up.
had even
They emitted
completely
a
snuffed
huge
out
pressure
any
that
chance
surged
she had
out
of
of
making a comeback.
Immortal King Ling
Her
Long
beauty and
glanced
zither
sideways
Dao
at
that
Su
Su
Zemo
Zemo
of
had
the
all
divine
been crippled by
firmament
Wu
immortal
Dao's
realm.
true self.
At that moment,
Today, Su
she had
Zemo's
lost all
expression was
faith,
calm,
and her former
as if he
glory
still
had
did
also
not feel the
vanished.
danger.
In less than
If you
half
want
a day,
to leave,
this
she
is
fell
your
from the
last
high and
chance.
mighty altar into
Immortal
a bottomless
King Ling
long
Long
where the sun
for
could
a
not be
moment.
seen. But she
At
could
this
not help
moment,
but send a voice
Thunder Emperor of
transmission to
Heaven's
remind
wrath
him.
saw that
She could not
was in
deduce
danger
anything about
and
Wu
rushed
Dao's
over.
true body.
However, by
Nor
the
could
time
she
he
guess the
arrived,
intentions of
Wu
Wu
Dao's
Dao's
true
true
body
body
had already dealt
Senior,
with Meng
don't
Yao.
worry.
Su
Zemo's
Zemo's
voice was calm.
Today's matter
and he
is
did
over.
not explain further.
Feng Cantillon
Wu Dao's
looked at
true
the group
body
of
looked
immortal
at the
kings
20
opposite
peerless
him
immortal kings
and
on
felt
the
a
peak
little
of Jinmu
uneasy.
Mountain, and
Although
suddenly
he was
said,
fearless,
he
"What's
did not
wrong?
want to die
Are
here
the
in a
peerless
daze.
immortal kings
In the
of the
future,
two regions
he
ready
still
to
wanted
fight?"
to kill his way back
Qin
to the
Su,
divine
the crown
firmament
prince
immortal
of the
realm,
supreme
and
firmament
take
immortal
revenge on
realm,
monarch
had
Jin,
been crippled,
and the crown
the
prince of the
everlasting
state of
knight
Jin.
immortal king was
Brother
furious.
Feng, you take them back
At that
first.
moment, he looked
Wu Dao's
gloomy
true
and said
body's
slowly,
tone was calm,
Araki
as if he did
Takashi,
not sense
you
the
came
danger
to the
at all.
continent of the
Let's
nine
go
clouds
together.
meeting and acted
Feng
atrociously.
Cantillon insisted.
If we let you
Wu
leave
Dao's
alive,
true body
we
said,
will lose face.
Take Sky Wolf
That's
and
right.
Shosillua back
Immortal
to the
King
other
Qin
side
Yang
first.
said
Loudly. You call yourself the supreme true demon, but in fact, you can already defeat a grotto heaven immortal king. We are not bullying you. Araki Takashi, you don't have to try to escape from here. Immortal King Qi Ping smiled coldly and said, I don't mind telling you that we have sealed the void here. Even if you take out the prison suppressing cauldron, you won't be able to escape to Avicii. Ba. Heavenly King Luo Shur of the Pure Land of Bliss put his palms together and said softly, Araki Takashi, your prison-suppressing cauldron is a sacred item of our Buddhist sect. Today it's time to return it to its rightful owner. The prison-suppressing cauldron was the great Emperor Wu Ji's great imperial weapon. It was related to Avicii. Even the celestial kings of the Nine Clouds immortal realm wanted it for themselves, let alone the heavenly kings of the Pure Land of Bliss. Moreover, When they saw Wu Dao's true body explode with such terrifying strength, the celestial king's imaginations ran wild. They thought it had something to do with Avicii. Alright. Wu Dao's true body's eyes flickered with purple flames, and his battle intent soared to the heavens. He said slowly, "It's a good opportunity to see how strong the peerless immortal kings of the two regions are." Chapter 26:16. Upon hearing Wu Dao's words, all the immortals and monks on Jianmu Mountain were shocked. How many years had it been since Araki Takashi from the demon region risen to power? Araki Takashi had just become the supreme true demon, and now he was going to fight against the peerless celestial kings from the two regions. At this moment, the crowd gradually realized that the so-called supreme true celestials and supreme arhats were not Araki Takashi's target at all. In Araki Takashi's eyes, the two lists were indeed a joke. Araki Takashi's target was the celestial kings from the Nine Clouds celestial realm and the pure land of bliss. Moreover, they were the peerless celestial kings. Since the beginning of the Nine Clouds convention, no one from the demon region had dared to cause trouble here. Moreover, this convention was different from the past. The two regions had sent more than 100 ordinary celestial kings and more than 20 peerless celestial kings. Everything had gone smoothly until the end of the true celestial realm and the Arhat ranking. Who would have thought that a mere desolate marshal of the fiend region would cause a storm of blood in the Nine Heavens convention today? Let's see what other tricks you have. The everlasting night celestial king from the grand firmament celestial realm attacked. In a flash, he appeared in front of Wu Dao's real body. He raised his hand and slapped the top of Wu Dao's head. After entering the Grotto Heaven realm and becoming a celestial king, many divine abilities and secret techniques would be condensed in the Grotto Heaven realm. The Grotto Heaven realm nourished the body and bloodline for a long time, so the body and bloodline of a celestial king contained the power of the Grotto Heaven realm. With a raise of his hand, he could erupt with shocking power. The battle between the Grotto Heaven realm experts was like returning to the natural state and simplifying the complicated. The everlasting night celestial king's seemingly casual slap contained the power of the Grotto Heaven realm. It faintly sealed the void around Wu Dao's real body, making it impossible for him to dodge. He could only face it head-on. Wu Dao's real body was expressionless. His qi and blood circulated in his body, creating a deafening sound. What powerful qi and blood! When the surrounding immortal kings heard the sound of qi and blood rising, they were all secretly shocked. This Araki Takashi had yet to step into the heavenly Grotto Heaven realm. So how did he cultivate to such a level? Could it be that this person had already formed a Grotto Heaven, but had concealed its aura and did not reveal it? Bang! Wu Dao raised his fist and clashed with the Eternal Night Immortal King's palm. Both sides trembled. Alright. The Eternal Night Immortal King's eyes shone brightly as he continued to attack. Wu Dao's main body was not afraid at all. He stood in the air and launched a counterattack. Both of them collided repeatedly in midair. Their fists and palms collided, and a wave of enormous bangs that shook the heavens and the earth erupted. They struck to the point numerous cracks appeared in space, and the heavens and the earth trembled. This was a battle between immortal kings. Even if they didn't use their heavenly abodes, they could still shake the void. Both sides clashed for more than a dozen rounds, and they were actually evenly matched. Eternal Night Immortal King narrowed his eyes slightly. As a peerless immortal king, his Grotto Heaven had nourished his body and bloodline for hundreds of thousands of years. Today, he launched a series of attacks, but he still couldn't gain the slightest advantage over Araki Takashi. Of course, he was only surprised, but he was not nervous. The power that Araki Takashi had just unleashed was not enough to pose any threat to him. Besides, he had not even used his full strength. For immortal emperors, their strongest move was their Grotto Heaven. The other immortal emperors, such as Green Sun Immortal Emperor, and the others exchanged glances with one another. They were all wearing relaxed smiles. Judging from the current situation, the Eternal Night Immortal Emperor alone was enough to suppress Araki Takashi, without them needing to make a move. Eternal Night, don't waste any more time with him. Defeat him as soon as possible.
to prevent other variables from happening. Green Sun Immortal Emperor said in a deep voice. Got it. The Eternal Night Immortal Emperor groaned as he unleashed his primordial spirit to support the grotto heaven. The void behind him suddenly collapsed, and a dark void appeared. There was not a single bit of light in it. It was his Eternal Night Grotto Heaven. Inside the grotto heaven, one would fall into a long period of darkness. It was difficult to see any light. As the grotto heaven appeared, the Eternal Night Immortal Emperor's aura skyrocketed, and his strength rose too. It's time to end this, the Eternal Night Immortal Emperor said calmly. He reached into the grotto heaven behind him and took out a pitch-black spear. A grotto heaven spiritual treasure. After a cultivator achieved the Immortal Emperor realm, he could place his psychic artifact into the grotto heaven to be nourished and refined. As time passed, when the psychic artifact completely merged with the grotto heaven, it would evolve into a grotto heaven spiritual treasure. Every grotto heaven spiritual treasure contained the Tao arts of the cultivator's grotto heaven. Whoosh! The Eternal Night Immortal Emperor stepped forward, while supporting the grotto heaven. He waved the pitch-black spear in his hand, and stabbed it at Wu Dao's true body with a destructive force. Wu Dao's true body remained calm. A blue light flashed between his brows, and the prison-suppressing cauldron appeared. It was emitting an ancient aura with lightning arcs circling it. The eyes of the Immortal Emperors glittered when they saw the prison-suppressing cauldron. It was the weapon of the Emperor of Infinity. More importantly, the prison-suppressing cauldron was the key to controlling the infernal hell. There was no grotto heaven aura on the prison-suppressing cauldron. This also confirmed everyone's speculation that Araki Takashi from the demon realm had not stepped into the grotto heaven realm at all. Many immortal emperors stared at the prison-suppressing cauldron with confused expressions, as if they had discovered something. The prison-suppressing cauldron's cultivation level had dropped. After passing the heavenly tribulation, it was only a psychic artifact now. And now, there were traces left by 10 heavenly tribulations on the prison-suppressing cauldron. Could the legend be true? Araki Takashi had really attracted the 10th heavenly tribulation? When the news spread, even the immortal emperors present scoffed, not to mention Yu Hua and the other perfected immortals. They did not believe it at all. After all, since ancient times, since the birth of life in the upper realm, there had never been a 10th heavenly tribulation. At this moment, the immortal emperors saw the 10 burn marks on the prison-suppressing cauldron with their own eyes. Only then did they vaguely realize that the legend back then was very likely true. There was really a 10th heavenly tribulation in the heavenly tribulation? Why was there no record of a 10th heavenly tribulation since ancient times? Even the outstanding martial monarchs had only overcome 9 heavenly tribulations at most. Clang! While the crowd was lost in their thoughts, the pitch-black spear and the prison-suppressing cauldron collided heavily. Sparks flew in all directions as lightning arcs danced wildly. This time, Wu Dao's true body was knocked a few steps back. However, with the help of the prison-suppressing cauldron that had overcome 10 heavenly tribulations, Wu Dao's true body managed to nullify the everlasting Night Immortal Emperor's attack. Even though the prison-suppressing cauldron's cultivation level had dropped, it was still a monarch weapon in the past. On top of that, it was the key to suppressing the Avicii hell. Even a heavenly spiritual treasure would not be able to destroy it easily. The everlasting Night Immortal Emperor's face turned unpleasant when he failed to suppress Wu Dao's true body with his heavenly spiritual treasure and heavenly spiritual treasure. He harumphed coldly and made his move again. This time, the everlasting Night Immortal Emperor's blood rose as he attacked with the spear in his hand. The heavenly spiritual treasure suppressed Wu Dao's true body with a tremendous aura. He was planning to devour Araki Takashi with the everlasting Night Immortal Emperor's heavenly spiritual treasure and refine him, turning him into nourishment for his heavenly spiritual treasure. Chapter 26:17. The night was long, and endless darkness spread. In an instant the sky darkened, and the sun and moon lost their brilliance. The eternal Night Immortal Emperor's grotto heaven spiritual treasure restrained the prison-suppressing cauldron and supported the grotto heaven behind him. directly devouring Wu Dao's figure. It's over. The immortal kings shook their heads slightly upon seeing this. As long as Araki Takashi was trapped in the eternal night immortal emperor's grotto heaven, no matter how powerful he was, he would only be a piece of meat waiting to be slaughtered. Immortal King Ling Long frowned worriedly. On the demon region's side, Feng Cantillon took a deep breath and suppressed his urge to attack. He continued to observe. Wu Dao's true body had repeatedly warned him not to attack. He believed that Wu Dao's true body would not die so easily. Within the eternal night grotto heaven, the eyes of Wu Dao's true body flickered. Purple flames burned fiercely in his eyes, and his qi and blood surged. He pushed his bloodline to the limit and released the bloodline phenomenon, heaven and earth furnace. Boom! Wu Dao's true body stood in the darkness, emitting endless brilliance. Flames soared into the sky. The flames included the martial soul fire, calamity fire, red lotus fire, dragon phoenix fire and hellfire. Even with so many flames, they were still unable to resist the eternal night grotto heaven. However, it was impossible for the eternal night grotto heaven to devour and refine Wu Dao's true body. For example, the hellfire originated from the Avicii hell. Although it was not as powerful as the Avicii hell due to the cultivation of Wu Dao's true body. However, the eternal night grotto heaven was unable to refine it. The grotto heaven was originally dark and silent. However, after it devoured Wu Dao's true body, a huge ball of flames appeared in the grotto heaven. Both sides were in a stalemate. As time passed, Wu Dao's true body's qi and blood became stronger, and the flames burned fiercely. On the other hand, the power of the eternal night grotto heaven began to gradually deplete. The eternal night immortal emperor's face darkened when he noticed this. On the battlefield, Heavenly King Luoshi chanted the name of Buddha and said, "Benefactor Eternal Night, you have killed the true demon Araki Takashi. You have done a great deed. However, the subduing hell cauldron is a sacred item of Buddhism. Please return it to its rightful owner." Azure Sun Immortal King smiled and said, "The prison-suppressing cauldron is an emperor weapon. It's said to be related to the Avicii hell, and a forbidden secret tome. It's not just fellow Taoist Luoshun. I believe everyone here is interested in the hell-suppressing cauldron." The Chipping Immortal King said indifferently, "The prison-suppressing cauldron is already ownerless. Since we're all here, we can't just hand it over to anyone." All the Immortal Kings present thought that Araki Takashi was dead for sure. They had already begun to discuss who would get the prison-suppressing cauldron. At that instant, the Eternal Night Immortal Emperor's cave began to tremble vigorously. In the endless darkness, a flame appeared, growing brighter and brighter. Then the ball of fire fell onto the battlefield. A figure stood amidst the flames. It was Araki Takashi from the infernal realm. All the Immortal Kings frowned when they saw this. What was going on? Not only did the Eternal Night Cave fail to refine Araki Takashi, but it spat him out instead? Sensing the gazes around him, the Eternal Night Immortal King's expression turned ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, "This demon's Tao is strange. He controls many kinds of powerful flames. It's difficult to refine him." Ba. Heavenly King Luoshi stepped forward and said, "It seems that only I can subdue this demon." Heavenly King Luoshi came before Wu Dao's main body. Without saying a word, he summoned his cave. The Buddhist light inside shone brightly and filled the sky, enveloping Wu Dao's main body. Then, Heavenly King Luoshi sat down cross-legged and floated in the air. He held a prayer bead in his hand and softly chanted Buddhist incantations. These incantations turned into golden runes and disappeared into the cave behind him. Not long after, Heavenly King Luoshi fiddled with the prayer beads in his hand faster and faster. A thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. After a while, Heavenly King Luoshi suddenly rose to his feet. A fiery figure flew out of the cave behind him. It was Araki Takashi from the demon region. Not only the Immortal's cave, but even the Buddhist's cave could not refine Wu Dao's main body. Heh! Wu Dao's main body chuckled. He looked around and glanced at Immortal King Qingyang's face. He said mockingly, "Is this all the peerless Immortal Kings of the two domains can do? In my opinion, there's no need to hold this Continent of Nine Clouds convention anymore. It's just a joke." How arrogant of you, demon! How arrogant! The immortal kings were enraged. Even more than 20 peerless immortal kings of the two domains were emitting a murderous aura. Immortal kings were almost at the peak of the upper world. They could rule over billions of living beings. They could not stand any humiliation or provocation. Moreover, the cultivators of the two domains were gathered here. They were the center of attention. If they could not suppress Araki Takashi from the demon region, the immortal kings of the two domains would become the laughingstock of the upper world after today. Among the immortal kings, there weren't many who could remain calm. Immortal King Ling Long could tell that Wu Dao's main body, just now's words were obviously intended to anger the immortal kings present, including the peerless immortal kings. However, she could not figure out what Wu Dao's main body meant by doing this. She could only speculate the consequences of Wu Dao's main body's actions. Originally, the peerless immortal kings present were too embarrassed to join forces to deal with the supreme true demon. Now, after being provoked by Wu Dao's main body, more than 20 peerless immortal kings were enraged. It was very likely that they would join forces to suppress Wu Dao's main body. Don't talk nonsense with him. Immortal King Changya gritted his teeth and said, "This person's Dao is strange. Let's release our cave and join forces to destroy him." "That's right," Heavenly King Luotian said in a deep voice. "Since we can't devour and refine this demon, we can only destroy his physical body and bloodline and forcefully purify him. Come, I want to see how long this demon can last under our joint forces." Immortal King Qingyang also expressed his stance. In the blink of an eye, 19 peerless immortal kings stood out and surrounded Wu Dao's main body. These 19 peerless immortal kings all released their respective cave at the same time. In an instant, the sky changed color. On the battlefield, 19 cave heavens with different Dao arts appeared, emitting a terrifying aura as they crushed toward Wu Dao's main body. Immortal King Ling Long's heart skipped a beat, and she stood up instinctively. In such a situation, even if she was in his position, she would not be able to escape. The 19 cave heavens had already sealed off all the exits in all directions. Araki Takashi might be relying on some strange Dao art to prevent himself from being devoured by the cave heavens. But under the suppression of 19 cave heavens, Araki Takashi would definitely not be able to withstand it. Immortal King Ling Long had just seen clearly that although Araki Takashi was not devoured by the cave heavens of Changya Immortal King and Heavenly King Luotian, he had suffered a great impact, and his aura had weakened significantly. If the 19 cave heavens crushed toward Araki Takashi at the same time, there was only one outcome for him: the destruction of his body and soul.
Chapter 26:18. On the peak of Jinmu Mountain, Su Zimo looked calm, but in reality, he was extremely nervous. Although Qinglian's true body was not involved and would not be affected, Wu Dao's true body would cease to exist if he failed to make this choice. Even so, it was worth it for Wu Dao's true body to take the risk. This choice was of great importance and would determine the future path of Wu Dao's true body. It was a path that no one else could replicate. Although Qinglian's true body was in Heaven and Earth Academy, that inexplicable sense of danger was still there and was faintly discernible. As his cultivation realm deepened and his combat strength increased, that sense of danger did not disappear. Instead, it intensified. Su Zimo needed Wu Dao's true body to improve further and grow to a sufficiently powerful level. On the one hand, Wu Dao's true body was stronger and could better protect Heaven Baron sect. On the other hand, if Qinglian's true body encountered any danger that could not be resolved in the future, Wu Dao's true body could be her escape route. There was another point. Wu Dao's true body intended to head to the great desolate world. If he was only at the true martial realm, he was still lacking in terms of strength. He had to become stronger, so that he had the confidence to search for Daiyu and be qualified to stand side by side with her. Beneath the divine tree of Jinmu, 19 peerless immortal kings propped up their grotto heavens and trapped Wu Dao's true body within. They launched their final attacks and collided continuously. The 19 grotto heavens contained 19 different Dao techniques and were constantly tempering Wu Dao's true body with creaking sounds. Wu Dao's true body seemed like it could fall apart at any moment. At that time, the bones and flesh of Wu Dao's true body would be crushed into dust. In less than a few breaths, Wu Dao's true body could not hold on anymore. If it was just 1 or 2 grotto heavens, he could still use his bloodline phenomenon and Heaven and Earth furnace to resist for a short period of time. But now 19 grotto heavens were united and Dao techniques surged. Even a perfected Wu Dao's true body could not withstand it. Puff! Puff! Wu Dao's real body was covered in blood. The real Wu Dao's body couldn't bear the burden anymore. Under the pressure of the 19 grotto heavens, his skin cracked, his bones were broken, and his organs were shaken. Crimson blood mist permeated both inside and outside of his body. Cough, cough, cough. Wu Dao's main body was also coughing up blood. In reality, the 19 peerless immortal kings still hadn't used their full strength. Every one of them had experienced countless life and death situations to reach their current level of cultivation. They were extremely cautious. Although they had taken action to suppress Araki Takeshi, most of their attention was focused in the direction of the demon domain. They were afraid that something would happen. Araki Takeshi's action seemed a little reckless. However, if he didn't have any other tricks up his sleeve, it would be hard to understand. All the peerless immortal kings were worried that if they suppressed Araki Takeshi, they would provoke Bo-sun. A few of the more than 20 peerless immortal kings didn't join the battle because they were worried about this. However, as time passed, the 19 peerless immortal kings had already severely injured Araki Takeshi. The demon domain was still calm, and there were no signs of demonic cultivators at all. Everyone gradually relaxed. So this is all a peerless immortal king can do? At this moment, Wu Dao's weak voice sounded. Araki Takeshi, you still have the mood to mock us now. You really don't know what's good for you. Eternal Night Immortal King sneered and said in a deep voice, Everyone, there's no need to worry. Attack with all your might and kill this demon. Destroy his body and soul. That's how it should be. Although Heavenly King Luoshur was from the Buddhist sect, he was also filled with killing intent. Only by completely killing Araki Takeshi would the prison-suppressing cauldron become an ownerless item again. Only then would he have a chance to obtain it. Kill! The peerless immortal kings shouted softly and used all their strength to activate the Tao skills in their grotto heavens. The power of the grotto heavens soared and suppressed Wu Dao's real body. This time, Wu Dao's real body couldn't hold on anymore. Rumble! With a loud bang, Wu Dao's real body exploded. His flesh and blood were destroyed. A huge force pierced through the void. A large area of the void collapsed deeply, and a dark black hole appeared. The terrifying power of the 19 grotto heavens not only destroyed Wu Dao's real body,
but also pierced through a large area of the void. The world returned to peace. The crowd of cultivators near the divine tree of the builder were also dumbfounded by the scene, their faces filled with shock. Desolate Marshal of the Fiend region had caused such a huge commotion at the Nine Heavens convention. He had just suppressed the paragons of the two rankings, killed the Supreme Arhat, and defeated the 7 immortal kings. He was simply fearless and arrogant. But now, he had ended up like this. He was killed by 19 peerless immortal kings, and there was no corpse left. When Mo Qing saw this scene, she seemed to have lost her soul. Her face was pale, and her body swayed slightly. She almost fell to the side. Fortunately, Yunju reacted in time and hurriedly supported her. Sigh. Yunju sighed softly and looked back in the direction of Su Zimo at the top of Jianmu Mountain. This was Su Zimo's secret. She couldn't say it out loud, and she didn't know how to comfort him. He died just like that. Junyu's expression was complicated, and her eyes were a little confused. She and Araki Takashi had just met by chance and had a short fight. Araki Takashi had left a deep impression on her. Since she started cultivating, Araki Takashi was the first and only person who made her feel that she couldn't resist and couldn't resist. Araki Takashi's existence even made her feel a sense of despair. No matter how hard she cultivated, she couldn't catch up with this person. Junyu didn't have much prejudice against the demon territory and fiendish cultivators. Araki Takashi's death made her feel deeply regretful. Mother Araki Takashi, he died just like that? Lin Luo couldn't believe it, and a trace of sadness flashed across her eyes. Back when the siblings were trapped in Langfeng City, it was because of Araki Takashi that they managed to escape. No matter where Araki Takashi came from, he was their savior. Immortal King Ling Long sighed and shook her head slightly. She muttered softly he should have died. Even though Immortal King Ling Long knew the secrets of heaven, she really couldn't imagine how Araki Takashi could have survived under the suppression of 19 grotto heavens. She instinctively looked at Su Zimo in the direction of the divine firmament immortal realm. At the same time, on the demon territory side, Feng Cantion, Yen Beichen, Ming Zhen, and Ji Yaoshua also looked in Su Zimo's direction. Everyone who knew Araki Takashi's true identity wanted an answer. Or rather, they wanted to find a glimmer of hope. At that moment, Su Zimo was staring at the dark and deep shattered void under the divine builder tree. His gaze became brighter, and a smile even appeared on his face. Success! If not for the fact that there were too many cultivators around, Su Zimo even wanted to roar to the sky. After Wu Dao's true body was destroyed in body and soul by the 19 grotto heavens, Su Zimo had indeed lost contact with Wu Dao's true body. However, this lasted for a very short time. In just a few breaths, he could once again sense the aura of Wu Dao's true body. In his senses, the aura of Wu Dao's true body rapidly increased from its initial weak state to an unimaginably exaggerated speed, becoming stronger and stronger. An even more powerful and terrifying Araki Takashi was about to return to the world. Chapter 26:19. While he was in seclusion in the Avicii Hell, Wu Dao's true body had never stopped deducing Wu Dao's technique. When he was about to come out of seclusion, he had already comprehended the crux of it. He only lacked some details and opportunities. In other words, it was unrealistic for Wu Dao's true body to step into the next realm of Wu Dao in a short period of time. However, at the same time, Wu Dao's true body had a flash of inspiration, as he had read too many ancient scriptures. Perhaps before he stepped into the next realm of Wu Dao, he could use another method to condense a grotto heaven and become a demon king. The appearance of Wu Dao's true body was an anomaly. It jumped out of the 3 realms and was not part of the 5 elements. His true body's existence was Wu Dao's fruit from the beginning. A normal Dao fruit condensed the cultivator's Dao techniques and cultivation essence. There were countless inheritances, secret techniques, and comprehensions. However, Wu Dao's fruit condensed the essence of Wu Dao's profundities. Not only did it receive the blessing of Hong Yuan, but it also had Wu Dao's will and the faith of all living beings. The convergence of all sorts of powers and coincidences gave birth to a Tao fruit with the aura of life. It could be said to be unprecedented. Up until now, his true body had been at the true martial realm. He had fused Wu Dao's technique into his bones, flesh and blood, forging and tempering the true Wu Dao's body. However, in reality, the true Wu Dao's body was also a Tao fruit. The Tao body was the Tao fruit, and the Tao fruit was the Tao body. The two were inseparable. Since ancient times, only Wu Dao's true body had such a situation. It was recorded in many Tao legacies that the prerequisite to condensing a grotto heaven was to shatter the Tao fruit. With the immense power from the shattering of the Tao fruit, one could break through the void outside their body and open up a chamber that reached the heavens and connected the three realms. That was a grotto heaven. This process was extremely dangerous. If the Tao fruit was shattered and the accumulated power was insufficient to support a grotto heaven, it meant that the breakthrough would fail. Either they died, or they could settle for the next best thing, becoming a half-step grotto heaven. Although their lifespan would increase, they would have no hope of stepping into the grotto heaven realm. Wu Dao's true body wanted to shatter the real Wu Dao's body. The real Wu Dao body was the fruit of Wu Dao. Shattering the real Wu Dao's body meant that the Dao fruit was shattered. It was also possible to open up a cave room and form a grotto heaven. This grotto heaven originated from Wu Dao's original body, and the existence of Wu Dao's original body was an anomaly. In other words, if this grotto heaven was born, it was extremely likely that it would jump out of the three realms and the five elements, evolving into a variant grotto heaven. This thought was too frightening. One had to know that the process of breaking through to the heavenly grotto heaven was extremely dangerous, even for an ordinary Tao fruit. Like Wu Dao's true body, whether or not the real Wu Dao's body was like a Tao fruit, able to break into the heavenly grotto heaven after shattering was still unknown. If he failed, Wu Dao's main body would have to settle for the next best thing. He wouldn't even have the chance to become a half-step grotto heaven. When ordinary perfected immortals tried to break through to the grotto heaven realm, they would only shatter their Tao fruit. What Wu Dao's true body wanted to shatter was the real Wu Dao's body that he had condensed. Once he failed, his body and soul would be destroyed and his soul would dissipate. Moreover, his real Wu Dao's body had already been cultivated to perfection. With a raise of his hand, he could even break through the small grotto heaven of an immortal king. Even ordinary grotto heaven spiritual treasures couldn't hurt his body. How could such a real Wu Dao's body be shattered? This idea was filled with difficulties, and there was a high chance of death. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a long time before deciding to take the risk. Although it was a risk, it wasn't that he wasn't prepared. First of all, if he wanted to break the real Wu Dao's body, he had to rely on external forces. This external force couldn't be too strong. If an imperial emperor released the power of the world, it would directly destroy the real Wu Dao's body. Even his Tao arts would be destroyed and refined. There was no need to talk about condensing a grotto heaven. Before the grotto heaven was formed, it would be destroyed. The safest way was for a peerless immortal king to make a move and make use of the power of the grotto heaven to destroy the real Wu Dao's body bit by bit. However, a single peerless immortal king was not enough. At least 10 of them were needed. Secondly, after the real Wu Dao's body was shattered, it wasn't impossible for him to revive. The bloodline of the real Wu Dao's body contained the blood of the dragon phoenix. Therefore, the body of Wu Dao's true body contained the final innate divine power of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. The power of the phoenix's nirvana. That innate divine power was far from enough. The phoenix's nirvana had a 90% chance of failure to begin with. Furthermore, under the suppression of the grotto heaven, that innate divine power might not be able to unleash its intended effect. On top of that, it was best to have a massive amount of life force as a supplement. Thirdly, and most importantly, the direction of his deduction was correct. The real Wu Dao's body was the fruit of Dao. When it was shattered, it could indeed break through the void and form a grotto heaven. All in all, the convention of the 9 heavens was the best opportunity for Wu Dao's true body to test this idea. There were enough peerless immortal kings at the convention of the 9 heavens. Moreover, The location of the Convention of the Nine Heavens was near the divine tree of the Jianmu. Once a great battle broke out, the real Wu Dao's body would shatter and evolve into a grotto heaven. This grotto heaven could then devour the life force of the divine tree of the Jianmu to extend its life. Under the divine tree of the Jianmu, after immortal King Azure's son and the other 19 peerless immortal kings had destroyed Araki Takashi's body and soul, they focused on observing the movements in the demon area. When they didn't find anything unusual, they heaved a sigh of relief. Immortal King Eternal Night sneered. Araki Takashi is so arrogant. I thought he had a backup plan. I didn't expect him to be an idiot who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Haha. Immortal King Azure's son chuckled. This kid killed a lot of people in the Jade Heaven Immortal region and then fled back to the Avicii Hell. He really thinks he can do whatever he wants with the prison-suppressing cauldron. He doesn't know that if we work together to seal the void, his prison-suppressing cauldron is just a decoration. At the mention of the prison-suppressing cauldron, all the peerless immortal kings looked at the hole in the void. The prison-suppressing cauldron was floating there. Ba! Immortal King Luo Shen chanted softly and rushed to the prison-suppressing cauldron. He reached out and grabbed it. Monk Luo Shen, you're too impatient. Immortal King Azure's son and the others also made their moves. The 19 grotto heavens appeared again and collided in the air. Wait! Stop! Immortal King Luo Shen suddenly frowned and shouted. What? You monk, what are you up to? Immortal King Chipping sneered. The void here has been sealed. Without an explanation from the prison-suppressing cauldron, no one can leave. Immortal King Luo Shen quickly said. There's something strange about the prison-suppressing cauldron. I can't move it. How is that possible? Immortal King Everlasting Night moved to the side of the prison-suppressing cauldron and reached out to grab it. The prison-suppressing cauldron still did not move, as if it was firmly sucked in by the dark and deep black hole behind it. Only then did the immortal kings realize that something was wrong. Why hasn't this void healed after so long? Immortal King Azure's son narrowed his eyes and asked. Although the battle between immortal kings could shatter the void, due to the laws of heaven and earth, the void would quickly recover and return to normal. But now, this pitch-black void had yet to heal. The immortal kings stared at the dark black hole not far away. Their gazes froze, and their expressions suddenly changed. In the depths of this black hole, a figure faintly appeared, as if it had become one with this black hole. If you want to take the cauldron, you'll have to ask for my permission. A voice rang out from the black hole, shocking the heavens. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.